Chapter 49:17. That girl was none other than Huolinger. Today's Huolinger has Qian Feng Yui and Yanlong Bone Whip. Her strength is even higher than that of Huoqianwu. Because these two divine weapons are in her hands, they can exert their true power, and Huolinger has enough power to nourish them. In the past, Qian Feng Yui and Yanlong Bone Whip had always been in a state of starvation. To put it bluntly, they were barely alive, but now following Huolinger, it was like a poor beggar meeting a rich man. These two divine soldiers followed Huolinger with all their hearts, because Huolinger was not a human race, but the spirit of Huolinger, and they trusted Huolinger even more. Now that they have just entered Huolinger's command, it is the best time to perform meritorious deeds. Moreover, they don't have to worry about the lost power being unable to be replenished, so they can use as much energy as they have, without any reservation. Originally, Long Chen planned to use Huolinger to block Jiang Yizhou and let Lei Linger attack the powerhouse of the Fire Temple. However, when Long Chen told them about this plan, he was opposed by Lei Linger. She thinks that she has the ability to resist Jiang Yizhou's blow, and Huolinger's long-distance sneak attack on the powerhouse of the Fire Temple has a higher success rate, because the flame power of the deputy head of the Fire Temple is the best cover for Huolinger. In fact, what Lei Linger considered, Long Chen also considered it, but he was worried that Lei Linger would not be able to block Jiang Yizhou. After all, Jiang Yizhou was the best among the heavenly saints, and his strength was very powerful. But Long Chen is not good at rejecting Lei Linger. Lei Linger is usually not good at words and rarely expresses her emotions, but Long Chen knows that her self-esteem is very strong. Now that Huolinger is getting stronger and stronger, and at the same time, there are two more heavenly sacred armaments, which completely inspired Lei Linger's unyielding strength. If Long Chen rejected her again, Lei Linger would definitely be very sad. Long Chen had no choice but to pretend to be confused for a while, forgetting that Huolinger had more advantages in long-distance attack, and praised Lei Linger. Lei Linger smiled happily. Originally, Long Chen was very worried that Lei Linger could not block Jiang Yizhou. Lei Linger has always been pitiful. Although she has a strong power of calamity, she can only really eat once every time he crosses the calamity. But after eating this meal, she has to follow Long Chen all the way to the next tribulation. The early stage is better, but in the later stage her strength will not keep up, and her strength will be thrown away by Huolinger. However, this time, Lei Linger showed her great strength and resourcefulness. She deliberately released Tianwei, which distracted Jiang Yizhou, and pressed the power of thunder to Jiang Yizhou from all directions, forcing Jiang Yizhou to take the defensive. Because he couldn't judge where the opponent's attack came from, Lei Linger launched the attack at the end, obviously far weaker than the opponent, but relying on his own wisdom, he completed the task brilliantly. This point, even Long Chen was very surprised. Lei Linger is much smarter than Huolinger. And Huolinger used the power of flames to imitate the fluctuations of the deputy hall master of the Fire Temple, hiding in the void. When Jiang Yizhou shot, a whip blew the head of a heavenly sage in the Fire Temple. I don't know if the Dragon Bone Whip has always hated the Fire Temple for not letting it get full, and the moment it shattered the head of the Fire Temple powerhouse, he opened his mouth and swallowed the body of the holy powerhouse that day. Buzzing! Huolinger killed the celestial sage in the Fire Temple, and suddenly the heaven and the earth trembled, and a strange array appeared above the void. There were 36 bright lights on the array, and at this time one of them the lights dimmed instantly. I knew that you old dogs didn't have any good intentions, but you still want to be a Oreo? Long Chen couldn't help sneering when he saw this scene. Although Long Chen didn't know what this formation was used for, but looking at the posture in front of him, he knew that they were trying to conspire against demon corpses, and even Fang Tianyin. That big formation enveloped the whole world, as if 36 eyes were peeping at everything here. When one of the eyes blinded, the whole big formation trembled and became unstable in an instant. When he saw this scene, Jiang Yizhou's face changed greatly, and at this time, the deputy hall master of the Fire Temple, who was besieged by Long Chen and Emon Yan, roared, "You idiot, quickly stabilize the Tiando formation." Jiang Yizhou only reacted at this time and returned to his camp immediately. Long Chen and Emon Yan suddenly felt the pressure greatly increased. The spell that trapped the deputy hall master of the fire temple began to expand rapidly, and it would soon be unbearable. On the other side, Fang Tianyin flickered, and the bloodlines on Xing Wujiang's body were burning rapidly. Obviously, they had also reached a critical moment there. Huolinger! Long Chen saw something bad and shouted. Huolinger immediately understood. The flame keel whip shot out from her hand and went straight to a heavenly saint powerhouse and shot away. While her hands were sealed, the 1,000 phoenix feathers trembled, and 1,000 ancient phoenix feathers gathered into 100 zhang torrent, galloping away. Puff! A heavenly sage was hit by the flame dragon bone whip. Because he didn't dare to leave his position, he could only block it hard. As a result, he was sprayed with blood. However, this person was ruthless enough, and he didn't move his feet from beginning to end. Block! Jiang Yizhou roared, and he rushed over immediately. Boom! As a result, he was still a step late, and the torrent of true feathers roared away, covering more than a dozen heavenly saint powerhouses. They resisted with all their strength, but they were still shaken back again, and the formation began to be chaotic. Jiang Yizhou's eyes were about to split, and if this continued, the great formation they had worked so hard to set up would fall short. Jiang Yizhou gritted his teeth and slashed at Huolinger with his sword. At this moment, the Yanlong bone whip returned to Huolinger's hand. Huolinger swung the whip and hit Jiang Yizhou's whip. Boom! With a loud bang, the two divine soldiers collided, and Huolinger and Jiang Yizhou flew out at the same time. No one took advantage of this blow. However, the onlookers next to them sucked in a breath of cold air. They could all see that Huolinger was not a human body, but the flame spirit raised by Long Chen. The mere flame spirit could even fight with Jiang Yizhou of the fire temple. Evenly divided, it's terrifying. Buzz! At the moment when Huolinger and Jiang Yizhou were fighting recklessly, a beautiful girl armed with a sword of thunder rushed into the camp of the powerful people in the Temple of Fire, and it was Lei Linger who came. When the powerhouses of the fire temple saw that Lei Linger was coming, they immediately shouted that they were not good, because they had just suffered the impact of Qianfeng Zhenyu. Although this attack had a very wide coverage and scattered power, it was shared by more than a dozen people. But the power of this blow made them gushing blood, and even the power of the heavenly saints in the body began to be disordered, and it felt like the body was about to explode. At this time, they were so uncomfortable that they wanted to vomit blood, and it seemed that most of their strength had been drained. At this time, Huolinger appeared. Huolinger held the sword of thunder and did not attack anyone, but stabbed the sharp sword in his hand. In the earth, the strength of the whole body was integrated into the long sword. She flickered and returned directly to Long Chen's chaotic space. At this time, she was extremely weak, and her body was almost transparent. And the sword of thunder that she left on the ground exploded, and the blades of billions of thunder cut through the void, swallowing everyone in the formation in an instant. Chapter 49:18 Thunder raged. Thousands of swords flew in unison. Those swords of thunder were formed by Lei Linger using the power of the source. She struggled so badly that she resorted to this move. Those heavenly sage powerhouses clearly know that they cannot move at this time, and can only rely on the protection of the divine light to resist, otherwise the great formation will disperse. But the instinct of life did not allow them to do so, and they had to divide half of their strength to resist the thunder sword, and the thunder sword slashed at them. Puff puff! These powerhouses vomited blood and flew upside down. The previous blow from Huolinger had already cost them half their lives. Now, this move by Lei Linger was completely unbearable to them. Buzz! As they flew out, the great formation above the 9 heavens collapsed suddenly. At the same time, the demon corpse and the Fang Tianyin above its head trembled, and their aura suddenly skyrocketed. It turns out that they are suppressing the power of the demon corpse and Fang Tianyin through this formation. At that moment, Long Chen suddenly understood. The emotional fire temple has been secretly controlling the demon corpse and Fang Tianyin, but this formation is too hidden. Not only Xing Wujiang was concealed, but even Fang Tianyin and the demon corpse were not aware of it. Of course, the Fire God Temple will not be kind enough to help Xing Wujiang. Obviously, they want to take advantage of the fishermen when everyone loses. They want the demon corpse, Fang Tianyin and the others want it, and they will accept Xing Wujiang's life. But what Long Chen doesn't know is that this Tiando Great Array is the secret method of the Fire Temple. In the inheritance of the Fire God Temple, there are not many formations, because the Fire God Temple has too many fire-type supernatural powers. Even if a person devotes his life to the effort, he will never learn 1/10,000th of the whole. Therefore, the formations that can be passed down by the Fire God Temple are all high-quality products. This Heaven Do formation is not actually a killing formation, nor is it a protection formation, but a banning formation. The Heaven Do Great Array was divided into 18 Heavenly Do formations, 36 Heavenly Do Great Arrays, and 72 Heavenly Do Great Arrays. The number refers to the number of people, and the Heavenly Saint level cultivation base was the basic requirement to promote the Heavenly Do Great Array. And these Heavenly Saint powerhouses who form the formation need their spiritual power, soul power, physical strength, blood power, flame power, etc. to be almost the same, and this condition will be a bit harsh. However, the Fire God Temple family has a great career, and they still have enough 36 powerhouses to form this 36 Heavenly Do Great Array to ban Demon Corpse and Fang Tianyin. The terrifying part of this Heaven Do Great Array is that it is quietly displayed. It is rumored that it operates through the Heaven Do technique. The so-called Heaven Do technique, similar to the Heavenly Secret technique, is related to the mystery of the operation of the Heavenly Tao. People know. With Xing Wujiang's strength, Fang Tianyin's experience was unable to detect this Tiando formation, and we could see how terrifying this formation was. When the Heaven Do Great Array was broken, Fang Tianyin's breath and the aura of the demon corpse skyrocketed. Xing Wujiang was both surprised and delighted, because he found that when the formation was broken, the power of his ancestral marks finally began to burn, and quickly penetrated into Fang Tianyin's body. Fang Tianyin turned red in an instant, and a hot flame rose. Jiang Yizhou was dumbfounded, and he never thought that because of his recklessness, the Heaven Do Great Array they had carefully prepared was broken. At this time, he was deeply remorseful. If he hadn't left his post without permission, the Heaven Do Great Array would have been monolithic and impeccable. Now that the Great Array was broken, it was all his fault. He couldn't bear this crime. He couldn't help but look at the flame prison trapped by Long Chen and Emon Yen, and suddenly felt a tingling in his scalp, and even gave birth to an urge to escape as far as possible. The Tiando Great Array was broken, which meant that Fang Tianyin and the demon corpse would not be under control. If Fang Tianyin and the demon corpse were destroyed in the end, he could only apologize with death. Long Chen, die for me! Jiang Yizhou roared and gnashed his teeth to kill Long Chen. He vented all his anger and panic on Long Chen. Boom! As a result, as soon as he moved, Huolinger's flame keel whip roared, the air waves rolled, the flames were terrifying, and the powerful force made Jiang Yizhou have to resist. As a result, Jiang Yizhou was shocked and flew out. Jiang Yizhou was so angry that the dragon bone whip in Huolinger's hands was much stronger than that in Huo Qianhua's hands. Continuing to suffer losses in the hands of a fire spirit, but he has no way to do it, the dignified holy powerhouse can't even deal with a fire spirit. That kind of frustration makes him crazy. Let's take action together and kill Long Chen. Jiang Yizhou roared. He now regards killing Long Chen and resolving the danger of the deputy hall master of the fire temple as the only life-saving straw. Only in this way can he possibly make up for his faults. Kill. The big formation was broken, and the powerhouses of the Fire God Temple were furious one by one. With Jiang Yizhou's order, they held the magic weapon and killed Long Chen. They were attacked by Huolinger and Lei Linger in succession before, but they couldn't fight back and were injured, and they were going to be mad. With Jiang Yizhou's order, they were murderous one by one, and they wanted to tear Long Chen to pieces. Thousand flames revolve, Phoenix dances for 9 days. However, just after they rushed out, Huolinger's clear and cold scolding with a childish voice resounded throughout the world, only to see her jade hands seal, her wings disintegrated, and turned into thousands of ancient phoenixes. This trick is Qianfeng Yuyi's own magical power, but no one dared to use this trick since Qianfeng Yui was forged until Huo Qianwu inherited it. because the disintegration of the feather coat means that they have lost control over them, and they can leave the feather coat and fly away on their own at any time. But Huolinger is not afraid. Qianfeng Yuyi's loyalty to her is almost full. In Huolinger's hands, there is food and drink. For them who have been hungry all the time, they may not be driven away. We'll go. 1,000 ancient phoenix feathers turned into 1,000 ancient phoenixes. They lined up, their mouths held the phoenix tail of the ancient phoenix in front of them, their wings fluttered, forming a long dragon, and the team revolved, holding Long Chen and Emon Yen firmly. Packaged, watertight. Boom boom boom. Those heavenly saints are attacking wildly. Those ancient phoenixes cannot destroy their formation. Some people attack an ancient phoenix with all their strength, hoping to find a breakthrough point, but unfortunately, no matter which ancient phoenix they attack, that strength will be shared by all the ancient phoenixes. It can be said that this defense is flawless. Nice job. Seeing this scene, Emon Yen couldn't help but exclaimed loudly. Originally, when this group of people came to kill, Emon Yen planned to sacrifice some holy soldiers to self-destruct. However, these holy soldiers are not the rubbish before, they are all good holy soldiers, although he can't use them. But he could sell it for a lot of money, so he blew himself up, and he was a little reluctant. When Huolinger appeared, he resisted the attack of such a heavenly sage by himself. Emon Yen's eyes were red with envy. This is Long Chen's flame spirit. If it was someone else's, he would definitely move. Crooked mind. Buzz, Long Chen and Emon Yen's expressions changed, the prison they controlled expanded rapidly, and the deputy hall master of the fire temple was about to break out. Long Chen turned his head to look at Xing Wujiang. At this time, he had reached the most critical moment. All the ancestral lines on his body had poured into Fang Tianin. On Fang Tianin, a cross chain appeared, binding it firmly. At that moment, Long Chen suddenly became nervous, and he was just about the last step. He knew that as long as the cross chain was detonated, Fang Tianin and the demon corpse would be destroyed in an instant. Hold on! Long Chen and Emon Yen shouted almost at the same time. They knew that Xing Wujiang was about to succeed. Call. However, at this moment, a sudden change occurred, and a figure wearing a mask appeared. He held something in his hand and rushed straight to Xing Wujiang. Not good. When the masked man appeared, Long Chen and Emon Yen's expressions suddenly changed. Chapter 49:19. He shouldn't be able to rush through Fang Tianin and the magic corpse's protective light. Emon Yen gritted his teeth. In fact, on the entire battlefield, only the people like Xing Wujiang and the deputy hall master of the fire god temple who took that step and touched the barrier could destroy the protective light of Fang Tianin and the demon corpse. As for the other heavenly sages, they couldn't get close to them at all, which is why Jiang Yizhou and others didn't attack Xing Wujiang. But the appearance of the masked man made Long Chen extremely uneasy. This guy is not only powerful, but also an extremely insidious person. He is also good at calculating. This person is very difficult to deal with. Long Chen didn't believe that he dared to shake the body-protecting divine light of the demon corpse. However, both Long Chen and Emon Yen used all their strength to restrain the deputy hall master of the fire god temple. They did not dare to relax in the slightest. When Long Chen saw what the masked man was holding, his pupils shrank suddenly. It turned out to be an arm, a bloody arm. Oops! When he saw that arm, Long Chen's scalp suddenly became numb, and when he saw the masked man approaching the demon corpse, the arm in his hand slammed towards the demon corpse when he was still hundreds of miles away from its protective light. That is... At this time, Emon Yen also saw the arm clearly. The magic energy was entangled on the arm, and the nails were like knives. He recognized it. After Long Chen and Emon Yen left, they vaguely saw that the masked man had started with the demon powerhouse, but they did not expect that the demonic powerhouse had an arm cut off by the masked man. Boom! The arm slammed into the body-protecting divine light of the demon corpse, and it burst into pieces. Buzz, after absorbing the blood mist, the demon corpse trembled violently, and then its head began to tremble, and the violent demonic energy washed the heaven and earth like a tide. Boom! The body of the demon corpse kept shaking, The runes on its body lit up one after another. Xing Wujiang roared, and flames rose around him. He began to burn his own blood essence, and wanted to use his own blood essence to continue to burn the ancestral marks. However, the demon corpse was nourished by the blood essence and seemed to wake up from a deep sleep. No matter how hard Xing Wujiang tried, he couldn't stop the demon corpse from recovering. Finished, Long Chen and Emon Yen saw this scene, and their thoughts were completely ashamed. The demon corpse had been dead for many years, and Fang Tianyin controlled the demon head. Even if they merged, Fang Tianyin still controlled it. To put it bluntly, Fang Tianyin was the leader. However, now Xing Wujiang burned the ancestral pattern and locked Fang Tianyin. Fang Tianyin's control over the corpse was greatly reduced. The demon corpse obtained the blood essence of its descendants, and at this most fatal moment, its instincts were awakened in an instant. As a result, all their previous efforts were in vain. Today's Xing Wujiang has only two ways to go. First, release the lock of the ancestral pattern and let Fang Tianyin and the corpse fight. And second, continue to lock Fang Tianyin and let the corpse wake up. But no matter what choice he made, the result was the same. Now Fang Tianyin and the demon head are integrated and cannot be separated. Whether Fang Tianyin controls the demon corpse or the demon corpse controls Fang Tianyin, it will cause boundless catastrophe. At that moment, even though Xing Wujiang had gone through countless risks and had seen countless storms, he still felt a blank in his mind. In the end, a bit of bitterness appeared on his face, and he sighed, "I know that this is fate, but I just don't want to admit defeat, but under fate, I have to admit defeat if I don't admit defeat." Boom! The corpse trembled violently. Xing Wujiang could no longer control Fang Tianyin, and was bounced out by a terrifying ripple. Boom! At this moment, Long Chen and Emon Yen couldn't support it either. Their prison was shattered, and the deputy hall master of the fire temple had a livid face, and his eyes were full of Sin Lung's killing intent, just standing above the void. However, he did not immediately attack Long Chen and Emon Yen, nor did he scold Jiang Yizhou, and he did not even look at other people. His eyes turned to the demon corpse in the distance. At this time, countless runes appeared on the body of the demon corpse in the distance, and half of them started to light up slowly. Obviously, these magic runes were slowly awakening. Above its head, there is a huge vortex, and its body is devouring the energy between heaven and earth frantically. It feels as if the whole heaven and earth will be sucked dry. The world has become magical because of its existence. Like a demon world. At that moment, everyone inside and outside the battlefield, whether they were enemy or foe, was stunned. They had never seen such a terrifying scene before, as if the end of the world was about to come. Long Chen and Emon Yen's faces were extremely ugly, but the masked man above the sky sneered contemptuously, "If you dare to destroy my good deeds, you can't even succeed." Hee hee, the demon corpse is extracting the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. When its demon soul recovers, it will kill as much as possible. This is the result of you two idiots provoking me, ha! Speaking of which, the masked man laughed loudly, and the laughter was full of the pleasure of revenge. Obviously, the expressions of Emon Yen and Long Chen made him very satisfied. "You idiot, do you know what you did?" Emon Yen roared. "Hey, of course I know, and I also know that there are 3 ancient cities and more than 700 small cities around, including the demon city. There are countless human races here, just to harvest the soul of this demon corpse, strive for its wisdom as soon as possible, and kill more human races." The masked man chuckled. "You are also a human race, but you want to use it to kill your fellow clan? Are you a beast?" Emon Yen's teeth were about to shatter, and his voice popped out of his teeth. "I'm happy, what can you do to me?" The masked man sneered, as if he was deliberately angering Long Chen and Emon Yen, and it seemed that watching more people die would make him extremely excited. "I can smash your corpse into tens of thousands of pieces and turn your bones into ashes." Long Chen clenched his fists in anger. He has forgotten how many years he has hated a person so much. "Brother," at this moment, Xing Wujiang in the distance spoke. Long Chen turned to look at Xing Wujiang. Xing Wujiang looked at them with a warm smile on his face. It is the greatest honor of my life for me to meet two brothers in Xing Wujiang's life. It's a shame that we met too late. It's a pity that I'm a brother. I can only accompany you here, take care. Big brother Wujiang. Long Chen and Mo Nian were shocked and saw Xing Wujiang slowly closed his eyes, and when he suddenly opened his eyes again, the heavenly veins on his body disappeared, and people instantly passed through the body-protecting divine light of the demon corpse and appeared in Fong Tianyin above. Chapter 49:20 Xing Wujiang didn't know what power he used, but he went straight through the body-protecting divine light of the demon corpse and came to Fong Tianyin's side. At this moment, the chains on Fong Tianyin disappeared, and endless magical energy circulated in the runes in Fong Tianyin. Sorry. Xing Wujiang looked at Fong Tianyin, stroked Fong Tianyin with his big hand, and said with guilt, "It's my Xing family's incompetence and inability to share your worries for you, which caused you to contend with the devil all the year round, contaminated with devilish energy, and fell into the devil's way. For countless years in my Xing family, no one can help you share your worries. It is all up to you to support up to now. It is my Xing family who has borne you." Speaking of this, Xing Wujiang's voice choked up. He did not resent Fong Tianyin, even if Fong Tianyin wanted him to cut off his sons and grandsons. But he knew that it wasn't Fong Tianyin's original intention, it was all the devil's soul at work. Unfortunately, the Xing family has been in a state of decline, and there has been no real powerhouse to help Fong Tianyin for countless years. If they can help Fong Tianyin, even if it is just for a chance to rest, maybe Fong Tianyin will not be invaded by the devil's soul. Buzz, at this moment, Fong Tianyin became transparent. In the transparent giant seal, a 6- or 7-year-old child appeared. He was practicing hard. Next to him was a majestic old man holding a thorn, guiding the boy's movements. Action. When the boy made a slight mistake, a thorn was drawn, and blood stains appeared on the boy's body. The boy grinned in pain, but he didn't complain at all, nor did he flinch. The boy worked hard day and night, rain or shine. He grew up day by day, and became stronger day by day. That was the footprint of Xing Wujiang's growth, which was revealed by Fong Tianyin. Sorry. Xing Wujiang lost his voice in pain. Fong Tianyin was tender to him, just like a mother, but he knew that it was the demon soul who deliberately controlled it to arouse his emotions and made him unable to do it. Buzz, Xing Wujiang opened his arms, like hugging his relatives, hugging Fong Tianyin. He slowly closed his eyes, and then his body slowly merged into Fong Tianyin. Blood-colored ripples instantly covered the entire Fong Tianyin. Big brother Wujiang. Long Chen and Mo Nian were about to split, and Xing Wujiang finally used his own life to fuse with Fong Tianyin. Only in this way can he temporarily regain Fong Tianyin and not be controlled by the demon soul. Boom! Suddenly, countless cracks appeared on Fong Tianyin. Fong Tianyin left, and cracks appeared on the corpse. At this time, it was integrated with Fong Tianyin. I hate. Mo Nian clenched his fist and his nails had pierced into his palm. This was the second time in his life that he hated his incompetence so much. The first time was the world destruction battle in Tianwu continent. After that pain, Mo Nian has been working hard to improve himself. He thought that this kind of thing would never happen to him again. However, this feeling of powerlessness came to him again. Then go to hell, what's the use of screaming? However, at this time, the masked man in the distance did not forget to add fuel to the fire, and there was sarcasm in his voice. He died because of you. You should apologize for your sins with death. Don't worry, the descendants of Xing Wujiang, I will send them down one by one to reunite with you. Boom! At this time, the demon corpse and Fong Tianyin had begun to fall apart, but their power was not outward, but inward, and the space was constantly collapsing and compressing. Boom! Under the gaze of countless people, Fong Tianyin and the demon corpse burst open, and a huge black hole appeared in the void, swallowing them like a demon's mouth. At that moment, the whole world was quiet and the black hole disappeared, as if there had never been Fong Tianyin and demon corpse in this world, let alone Xing Wujiang. Long Chen and Mo Nian watched as Xing Wujiang disappeared. Their hearts were cut like a knife, and at this moment, the people of the Fire Temple had surrounded them. Not only them, but there are hundreds of heavenly sages outside, leading their respective sects, and surrounded them. Obviously, their actions are showing goodwill to the fire temple. Before, only a part of the forces stood on the side of the fire god temple, and others were watching, because Xing Wujiang's reputation was too great, and he controlled Fang Tianyin, and no one dared to stand in line easily. But it is different now. Fang Tianyin is destroyed, Xing Wujiang is also dead, although they are no longer used in the fire god temple, but the icing on the cake, it is still to be done, even if it is to pretend. You two cooperated well just now. You actually trapped the main hallmaster, and even broke the Heaven Do Great Array. Although it was broken because of an idiot carelessly, it is still very remarkable. Standing above the void, looking down at Long Chen and Emon Yen, he said coldly. At this time, Jiang Yizhou was already sweating, but there was a look of joy in his eyes. Although the deputy hall master scolded him as an idiot, the scolding also indicated that although he was angry, he would not punish him heavily. It turned out that Jiang Yizhou was the confidant of the deputy hall master of the fire god temple. He regarded him as the master. When the master was in trouble, he immediately came to the rescue. Even if Jiang Yizhou made a mistake, he couldn't get into it. After all, it would chill the hearts of his subordinates. Long Chen and Emon Yen were still looking at the direction of Xing Wujiang's disappearance. They still couldn't accept the fact that Xing Wujiang had died. They felt that everything in front of them was like being in a nightmare. Hear the general. Are you dumb? Or have you been frightened? Or you have given up resistance, stopped struggling, and quietly waited for death to come? The masked man sneered. How to say? For a long time, Emon Yen looked at Long Chen. Long Chen's face was cold, and in his eyes, there were terrifying black spots, and his breath became gloomy, which was a little different from his usual state, but he didn't notice it himself, not even Emon Yen. Notice the change in Long Chen. There's nothing to say, Wujiang eldest brother Xian, be a brother, give him a ride. Long Chen's voice was a little hoarse. How? Emon Yen asked. Pave the road with blood and build a bridge with bones, otherwise how can big brother Wujiang sleep peacefully under Jiuquan? Long Chen said. Huh. The conversation between Long Chen and Emon Yen was heard by everyone in the audience. These people thought the two were crazy and were talking nonsense, and the masked man laughed even more. It's really funny, you two wastes dare to say such a big thing. Are you ready? Long Chen looked at Emon Yen, and at the same time, there was something in Long Chen's hand. It was a strange chip. Others didn't react when they saw the chip, but the deputy hall master of the fire temple saw the chip. Suddenly his face changed greatly. Boom, Long Chen clenched his hand, and the chip was directly crushed by Long Chen, and a ripple quickly spread in all directions. When the ripples spread, everyone was covered in an instant, and the masked man was taken aback, but soon he found out that after the ripples passed, he didn't feel a trace of it. Shout. My cultivation base was suppressed. Chapter 49:21 The chip that was crushed in Long Chen's hand was the ancient jade that Long Chen obtained when he seized the foundation of the academy. After Qiankuan Cauldron surrendered it, he told Long Chen that it was a chaotic fragment with the law of chaos, so it could be sealed. The cultivation base of the heavenly sage powerhouse suppresses it in the realm of God Venerable. After Qiankuan Ding got it, it absorbed about half of its power, and the remaining essence was refined into a rune crystal. This talisman retains the power of the seal. When Long Chen crushed it, the cultivation of all the heavenly saint-level powerhouses on the scene was instantly suppressed. The extinguishing fire lotus, Long Chen crushed the rune crystal with his right hand, and a flaming lotus flower in his left hand bloomed rapidly, covering all the powerhouses in the blink of an eye. First, Long Chen didn't give them time to avoid it all. The flame lotus just appeared, burst open, and the power of endless flames spewed out. Puff puff. Those Tianxing powerhouses who were closer to Long Chen and rushed into the core area of the battlefield were burned into charcoal by the flames before they even had time to say a word. Just when they set off, a fierce long knife, like a life-threatening blade, slashed all the way, cutting them into two pieces. In an instant, there were 13 heavenly sages who were beheaded by the dragon bone evil moon. All of those 13 heavenly sages were masters of the fire temple, because they were all fire cultivators, the world-destroying fire lotus. Damage to them will be greatly reduced. But even so, they who have been sealed with their cultivation bases are completely powerless to resist this move, and they can only escape for their lives. As for the other heavenly saints who came to help the dog eat shit, even if they started to flee for the first time, they were still swallowed up by the fire waves and instantly turned into nothingness. One moment, they were domineering, like emperors in charge of other people's life and death. The next moment, they became prisoners, wailing and roaring in the death vortex. Just as Long Chen released the world-extinguishing fire lotus, Emo Nyen had already bowed like a full moon, and a scale-like rune appeared on his bow-drawing arm. Blood gushed out from his arm and slowly flowed to the bowstring. The bowstring absorbed his blood, and a blood-colored beam of light flew out. The beam of light turned into thousands of arrows and shot away. The sound of breaking through the sky was like the howl of a ghost. Even under the fury, Emo Nyen's attack was still rock solid, and the target of his attack was not the heavenly saint powerhouses in the core area, but those on the edge of the seal. Because they only need to take one more step to escape the seal. The blood arrows flew past, and countless people were shot by the arrows. They screamed in pain. The places where the arrows were hit quickly rotted. However, some people only scratched their skin and escaped with gritted teeth, but Emo Nyen's arrow flew past, and the entire battlefield was filled with a strange fishy smell, and everyone seemed to be contaminated. They were very disturbed by strange things. Everything happened so fast that people didn't have time to react. In the blink of an eye, dozens of heavenly saints were killed, and earth saints and human saints died. I don't know how many. In the flames that filled the sky, Huolinger was wearing Qian Feng feather clothes and holding a flaming dragon bone whip, like a tiger entering a flock of sheep, slaughtering wildly. The heavenly saint-level powerhouse was swept away into a large area and was harvested crazily. Emo Nyen also took the opportunity to draw the bow frantically. The blood-colored feather arrow was his own blood essence and the arrow that was contaminated with the poison of the corpse of the tomb. The deadly arrow formed by the fusion of each other was shot outwards like no money. In the audience, only the deputy hall master of the fire temple was the least affected. His breath was still the existence of the heavenly saint. Seeing that the Keel evil moon continuously beheaded the powerful people of the fire temple, he shouted angrily, and opened his big hands. A flash of lightning blocked the path of the Keel evil moon, and grabbed the Keel evil moon. Snapped, the deputy hall master of the fire god temple grabbed the hilt of the Keel evil moon, and at that moment he was ecstatic, because he felt the endless power on the body of the Keel evil moon. He knew that this was a magical weapon with amazing origins. At this time, its power was not obvious because it was in a weak state, and its potential was endless. However, before the ecstasy on his face disappeared, the palm of his hand suddenly hurt, and countless needles were born from the hilt of the dragon bone evil moon, piercing his palm. "You also move lousy?" The evil voice of the Keel evil moon came, like the murmur of the demon king of hell, with arrogance in the evil, even the strong above the heavenly saints. It seems so humble in front of it. The deputy hall master of the fire god temple suddenly felt bad. He waved his hand for the first time to throw the Keel evil moon away, but under his force, the Keel evil moon was still in his hand. It turned out that the thorns born from the Keel evil moon penetrated his palm, softened instantly, knotted each other, and even tied his hand firmly to himself. Buzz, suddenly the evil moon of the Keel glowed, and the deputy hall master of the fire god temple suddenly felt that the strength of his whole body was rapidly leaking out, like a river bursting its banks, and it was out of control. The deputy hall master of the fire temple was stunned. If this goes on, it will only take a few breaths before he will be sucked dry. Puff! The deputy hall master of the fire god temple is also a ruthless man, with a long sword in his hand. He even cut off his arm at the elbow with one sword, without any hesitation in the process. Buzz, at this moment, the divine light in the sky dissipated. Boom boom boom. Huolinger's Keel whip was resisted by more than a dozen heavenly sage powerhouses. Originally, they were killed by Huolinger and desperately defended. Even if a dozen people defended together, they didn't know whether they could survive or not. The radiance of the gods disappeared, and their power returned in an instant, and the huge power shook Huolinger flying. As for Emon Yen's blood feather arrow, it was no longer as sharp as before, and it was completely shattered. At that moment, the people who were escaping quickly stopped in an instant. At this moment, the look of terror on their faces disappeared, but instead they were ferocious like beasts. On the ground, corpses had already floated for thousands of miles. In just a few blinks of an eye, more than 200 heavenly sages were on the spot, the bones of thousands of earth sages were not left, and no one knew how many people had died. Long Chen attacked, Emon Yen attacked from afar, Huolinger was harvesting in the middle, and all the powerful forces died here. When the seal disappeared, when they looked at Long Chen and Emon Yen, their eyes almost spit out fire. There were originally 36 heavenly sages in the Fire God Temple, but now, including Jiang Yizhou, there are only 7 of them. Because the distance is too close, their losses are the most serious. At this time, Jiang Yizhou and others were gnashing their teeth, and the veins on their foreheads were violent. The Fire God Temple has never been so useless as today for countless years, and was killed by a god-level boy who killed so many people. If this spread, the Fire God Temple will definitely become a laughingstock. Next, it's our turn. Have you figured out how to meet the wrath of this Hall Master? The Deputy Hall Master of the Fire Temple looked at Long Chen with a gloomy and authentic face. Chapter 49:22, Anger. Long Chen's eyes are full of cold, killing intent, and his voice is even more crazy. You still have the face to express anger? If it weren't for you, how could my brother Wu Jiang give up his good life and die with his most respected Fang Tunin? When your people die, you can vent your anger, and when others die, do they deserve their sins? Your life is life, and other people's life is a mustard? You can vent your anger on others at will, while others can only endure it. Yes, as an ant, you should accept your fate, and resistance will only bring more pain and a more painful price. Before doing anything, you should consider whether you can withstand the wrath of the strong. Ants, you should live humbly, and don't meddle in things that it shouldn't. At the moment when Long Chen squeezed the Fu Jing, the masked man who didn't know where to hide appeared again, and when he came out, he said in a mocking tone, Long Chen, don't talk nonsense with them. If you don't kill him today, how can you be worthy of Wu Jiang eldest brother? Give me the deputy master of the Fire Temple, and leave the rest to you. Can you handle it? Emon Yen said. Can you do it? Long Chen's heart was beating wildly, looking at Emon Yen's gnashing of teeth. Long Chen was a little worried. He was afraid that Emon Yen would do something stupid when he was angry. Don't worry, I won't do stupid things. I will die with such an idiot. I definitely can't do it. How can I exchange my useful body with an animal? Emon Yen shook his head. After finishing speaking, Emon Yen took out an arrow. When the arrow appeared, the expressions of all the powerhouses in the scene changed. On the arrow, there was still the might of the emperor and the aura of a demon corpse. Puff! Suddenly, Emon Yen inserted the arrow into the palm of his hand, and the sharp arrow penetrated Emon Yen's palm. Emon Yen's eyes were blood-red for a moment, and he only heard him muttering to himself, Blood and fire blend together, love and hate are intertwined, my hatred stems from the loss of my love. Hate in the heart, in God, in the spirit, in the soul, cannot be diminished or indelible. Please put your love on my body, my heart, my God, my soul, and my spirit. Use this arrow as a medium, use the heaven and earth as a link, and give all the power, Moko immeasurable. When Emon Yen muttered to himself, the heaven and the earth trembled, thousands of paths roared, and the universe changed color. The arrow kept shaking in his hand, and the royal rune on the arrow began to glow gradually, and the royal path became more and more aura, the more intense. When Emon Yen uttered the 4 words, Mok boundless, lightning flashed between the heavens and the earth, and the whole world was echoed by these 4 words, resounding through the heavens and the world. Buzz, the arrow in Emon Yen's hand suddenly decayed and fell from his fingers, but the rune on the arrow remained in Emon Yen's palm. At that moment, Emon Yen's breath suddenly became vicissitudes, as vast as the sea, as if possessed by ancient gods. Boom! At this moment, a dragon shadow appeared on Emon Yen's body. Heavenly Dragon Chi, Jiang Yizhou and the others shrank their pupils. What's going on? However, what made them even more horrified happened. Another dragon shadow appeared on Emon Yen, followed by the third, fourth, fifth. It didn't stop until the 9th article. Emon Yen Jiolong added his body and circled and danced. At this time, he was blessed by the breath of the emperor, which shocked all the strong people present. 8 are holy and 9 are emperors. Has he already entered the emperor at this time? People looked at Emon Yen in horror, and even their voices trembled. It is rumored that the heavenly saint powerhouse condensed a heavenly meridian dragon chi, which means that he has taken that step. In a sense, he is no longer a heavenly holy powerhouse, but has reached a higher level. It's just that at this level, there is no title and no one is named. People usually name it after condensing a few heavenly veins, or a few dragon energy. Xing Wujiang condensed a dragon energy of the sky, and the deputy hall master of the fire god temple also condensed the dragon energy of the sky, but there is a gap in strength between the two. Xing Wujiang's celestial dragon chi is in a primitive stage, showing a transparent state and not fully formed, while the celestial dragon chi of the deputy hall master of the fire god temple is complete. This is also why, when he saw the dragon energy of the god of fire of the deputy hall master of the fire god temple, Xing Wujiang regretted letting Long Chen and Emon Yen stop him, and asked the two gods to block the deputy hall master of the fire god temple. An existence that even he can't defeat. If the two of them make mistakes, he will regret it for the rest of his life. At this time, the 9 dragon chi on Emon Yen's body were all complete, with scales and claws. However, these celestial dragon chi were illusory, more like a projection, but the emperor's chi attached to them was illusory. The power of the man made everyone feel frightened. No, he did not ascend to the emperor. According to legend, the emperor who ascended to the emperor needs the 9 dragons to reunite, and his 9 heavenly veins are scattered. Yu Tianxing said, but even so, the fact that a disciple of the divine venerable realm can condense such a powerful force has already shocked the strong people present. Buzz, suddenly Emon Yen moved, he stepped on the void, slapped his palm down, the royal rune in the palm of his hand circulated, and the power of one palm pressed the sky, and directly hit the deputy hall master of the fire temple. The imperial rune is really powerful, but unfortunately, with your strength, how much power can you withstand it? When your body energy is exhausted by it, you will only be slaughtered by others. The deputy hall master of the fire temple sneered, the flames of the long sword in his hand circulated, and at the same time, the vision behind him opened, and there was a faint sound of chanting sutras between heaven and earth. Seeing this scene, the powerhouses of the fire god temple were all horrified. They could not have imagined that when dealing with a disciple of the god venerable realm, the deputy hall master not only propped up the vision, but also used the great Brahma Sutra to enter the strongest fighting state. The most terrifying thing was that they saw that in the vision behind the deputy hall master of the fire god temple, a god statue was looming, and even the power of faith was used. Among the powerhouses in the field, only the deputy hall master of the fire temple knew how terrifying Emon Yen was at this time. On the arrow, there was the immortal will of a true emperor, otherwise he would not be able to suppress the demon corpse for so many years. However, as he said, Emon Yen's strength is too weak to withstand the power of so many emperors, otherwise he will explode and die in an instant. If Emon Yen's cultivation can go further, he doesn't need to reach the realm of saint kings and saints. Even if it is the most basic realm of immortality in the sacred realm, the deputy hall master of the fire god temple will turn around and run away. But Emon Yen is only in the realm of God Venerable. Even if he has the power of the emperor, his body can't bear much of the power of the emperor, and he still has nothing to fear. Boom! However, when Emon Yen slapped his palm on the long sword of the deputy hall master of the fire god temple, his complexion changed. From white to purple, a mouthful of blood spurted out, and was hit by Emon Yen's palm. What? Jiang Yizhou and the others' jaws would drop, and their eyes would protrude. Chapter 49-23 The Deputy Hall Master of the Fire God Temple burst out with all his strength and greeted Emon Yen with a palm, but he was still shocked by the palm of his hand, and he vomited blood and flew upside down, and he couldn't even stop him. No one could have imagined this result, including Long Chen of course. He did not expect that Emon Yen would have such a terrifying trick. However, when Emon Yen slammed the Vulcan Deputy Hall Master back with a palm, the vision behind him kept shrinking, and the temple and Qing Tian Gusong in the vision kept shaking, and Long Chen understood in an instant. Emon Yen actually used the power of vision to buffer the power of the emperor. He did not directly absorb the power of the runes. As the Deputy Hall Master of the Fire Temple said, in that case, Emon Yen's body can't bear much power, and it is difficult to threaten he. But Emon Yen's vision is very powerful. He injects the power of the Emperor's Way into the vision, and then transfers it back to his body through the vision. In this way, after the transformation of the vision, the power of the Emperor's Way impacts his body. Will become much softer. Because of this, the power he can carry will increase several times or even dozens of times. However, after this blow, the vision behind Emon Yen trembled wildly. Obviously, this way of switching, Xin Yen also took great risks. If the power of the Emperor explodes his vision, then he will be completely finished. Even if he doesn't die, he will be reduced to a cripple. It can be seen that Emon Yen is already extremely angry at this time. Emon Yen and Long Chen are good brothers. They have been born and died countless times and help each other, but there are great differences in their personalities. Long Chen's character is more emotional, that is, the kind that likes to be emotional. Once the anger comes up, the king and Laozi will not accept it, saying that he will work hard. In the eyes of many people, this is a character with great flaws. Emon Yen is different. His character is rational. No matter how angry he is, he can always keep calm. It is because of this that he can escape countless times in front of enemies that are countless times stronger than himself. However, this is also related to his experience. He is usually dealing with dead people, and it is difficult to arouse his anger. But today was different. Seeing Xing Wujiang die, he couldn't do anything. He blamed it all on his own mistakes. Today, he really started to work hard. Today, Master Mo will teach you how to be a human being. Emon Yen roared and waved his fists. The fists were full of royal runes, and they danced like a wheel to the Deputy Hall Master of the Fire Temple. Boom boom boom. The Deputy Hall Master of the Fire God Temple was smashed back and forth by Emon Yen. Emon Yen's fist was like a warhammer, with the power of the Emperor. The long sword of the Deputy Hall Master of the Fire God Temple kept shaking. The Deputy Hall Master of the Fire God Temple stepped back while blocking, facing such a brave Emon Yen, even he did not dare to fight head-on. The power of the Imperial Rune is limited. I see how long you can last. Poof! The Deputy Hall Master of the Fire God Temple roared, but Emon Yen smashed it into the air, and another mouthful of blood spurted out. At this time, Emon Yen was in an invincible state. Even the Deputy Hall Master of the Fire God Temple would not dare to take a punch from him. He only dared to use the heavenly holy divine armament to resist, but he did not dare to attack. He punches. On this battlefield, only he understands that the fist blessed by the power of the Emperor's Way is unbearable. However, he believes that the power of the rune of the Emperor's Way cannot withstand such a stormy consumption and will soon disappear. At that time, Emon Yen became his possession. Get rid of Long Chen first, and then go and help the Deputy Hall Master to do it together. At this time, Jiang Yizhou recovered from the shock. The long sword in his hand pointed directly at Long Chen, and he opened the vision for the first time, and rushed towards Long Chen with murderous aura. The other powerhouses in the Fire Temple also shot, and at this time, the other powerhouses in the distance also roared and killed them. They helped the Fire Temple to surround Long Chen together, trying to get a favor, but Long Chen squeezed the rune crystal and killed them. Originally, they had no hatred with Long Chen. They just wanted to get close to the Fire Temple, But now it is different. Their people were killed by Long Chen, and the hatred was formed. Long Chen, you villain who kills thousands of knives, I will smash your corpse into 10,000 pieces. Return my ancestors' life. You are a murderous beast, you shouldn't live in this world, take your life. Seeing that Long Chen had fallen, the group of strong men roared, like bloodthirsty beasts, swarming up, to smash Long Chen's bones into ashes. Call, in the face of thousands of heavenly saints and countless earthly saints, Long Chen carried the Kiel Shiwei on his shoulders. Looking at so many hideous faces, Long Chen smiled, and he smiled even more fierce, more bloodthirsty, those teeth, more gleaming with the brilliance of death. A pill was sent into the mouth by Long Chen. Click! When the medicinal pill was crushed by the teeth, the violent medicinal power burned the dragon blood of Long Chen's whole body like a volcanic eruption, followed by the resounding sound of the dragon's roar, passing through the immortal sky, resounding through the heavens and the world. Boom! With a shocking sound, the void under Long Chen's feet shattered, and a beam of light shot up into the sky, piercing through the sky, and entering the cosmic starry sky. Long Chen's headband was broken immediately, his long black hair rose into the sky, and his whole body was covered with blood-colored dragon scales. On top of each dragon scale, there was a complete dragon body embedded in it, and the scales shone with metal. The luster dyes the whole world red. There is no need for Long Chen to actively summon. The dragon's blood will automatically possess the body, and the flame formed by the burning of the dragon's blood has a coverage 10 times that of the previous one. Buzzing. The power emanating from Long Chen's body is like a river pouring down 9 days, constantly scouring the world. Jiang Yizhou and others felt a suffocating sense of oppression for a while. But he still gritted his teeth and rushed into Long Chen's flame field, with a long sword in his hand, slashing down at Long Chen's head. When Jiang Yizhou's sword slashed on Long Chen's shoulder, and sparks suddenly splashed around. It wasn't that Jiang Yizhou was lopsided, but Long Chen tilted his head at the moment when the long sword was about to touch his scalp. When the long sword slashed on Long Chen's shoulder, Jiang Yizhou's pupils suddenly shrank into needles. Jiang Yizhou suddenly realized that something was wrong, and he quickly stepped back. Puff! However, a light sound came, and his eyes could see that Long Chen's figure was gradually receding, but soon he found that the whole world seemed to be cut off by someone, and the picture began to dislocate. Everything happened so fast that even Jiang Yizhou didn't know what was going on, but at this moment, a familiar voice came from his ear. The voice screamed in horror and kept calling his name. However, the sound became more and more blurred and farther away, and the picture in front of him gradually turned black, and finally disappeared slowly. In the exclamation of the powerful people in the fire temple, Jiang Yizhou's body was divided into 2 and was beheaded by Long Chen. 6 in 1. The powerhouses of the fire temple still didn't understand what was going on. An icy voice came, followed by a slashing slash with an evil long sword. Chapter 49-24, Puff Puff. The keel of the evil moon slashed horizontally, the blade ripped apart the space, and the heavenly saint powerhouses in the fire temple exclaimed and hurriedly blocked with divine weapons, and as a result, they were cut off together with their weapons. Only the remaining fire temple powerhouses were killed by Long Chen with a knife, and their blood was stained in the sky. Their blood was not scattered, but was absorbed by the Kiel evil moon. At this time, the Kiel evil moon has no idea how much blood of the heavenly saint powerhouse has been drunk, and it has also sucked an arm of the deputy hall master of the fire temple. Is slowly breaking free from the chains on his body, revealing his true strength. Countless powerhouses were madly killing Long Chen. At the beginning, when Long Chen killed Jiang Yizhou, it was in the flames, and they didn't see it clearly, but they all saw the scene where Long Chen killed all the heavenly saint powerhouses in the fire temple with one knife. In the eyes. At that moment, they were all horrified. At this time, Long Chen was the same as Emon Yen, and his strength soared in an instant. They were terrified and fearful. They wanted to retreat, but he rushed too hard, it was too late, and even if they wanted to retreat, they couldn't retreat, because the road behind them was blocked by other strong men, and the people behind, Because of their differences, the elephant blocked it and had no idea what was going on in front of it. Do not. A heavenly saint powerhouse held a sword and looked at Long Chen, but screamed in despair. Whirlwind. Long Chen stopped drinking, and the people walked with the knife, turning into a whirlwind, and then went straight to the crowd. Puff puff. When Long Chen burst out of the crowd, the entire battlefield was emptied by Long Chen. A line of countless broken limbs were scattered, and weapon fragments were flying. That scene made everyone stunned. Suddenly, Long Chen's eyes looked into the distance, where a man wearing a mask was looking at him in shock. Seeing Long Chen looking at him, he fought a cold war. Buzz. Long Chen abandoned those heavenly saints and rushed towards the masked man like a bolt of lightning. For the masked man, Long Chen has already hated it to the bone. If he were to use his life to compare with the lives of all the heavenly sages on the scene, he would rather give up these heavenly sages and kill this guy. Xing Wujiang is equivalent to indirectly died in his hands. Seeing Long Chen kill, the masked man immediately took out a talisman. Obviously, he was afraid, and he did not dare to fight against Long Chen in this state. The masked man snorted coldly, "Hey, I'll save your life first, and when your power is released, I'll take your head." He knows that whether it is Long Chen or Emon Yen, they are overdrawing themselves to improve their combat power. The most sensible thing to do at this time is to temporarily avoid Qifeng. However, just as his hand was stretched out, before he had time to activate the talisman, a bone dragon quietly appeared behind him. The masked man didn't even know that when he waved, he just put his palm into the bone dragon's mouth. The big mouth of the bone dragon snapped together. Puff! The masked man screamed, and one palm was smashed by the bone dragon. It turned out that the bone dragon was Huolinger's flame dragon bone whip. Originally, Huolinger had been guarding Long Chen's side, but the flame dragon bone whip in her hand was no longer the original flame dragon bone whip. When Long Chen crushed the rune crystal and completed the first large-scale killing, Long Chen asked Huolinger to quietly release the Yanlong bone whip. The flame dragon bone whip is made of a whole flame dragon bone. Because it is a weapon, countless shackles and slave marks have been added to its body in order to fully control it. But in the hands of Huolinger, Huolinger untied all the shackles and slave seals. In this way, the Yanlong bone whip was completely free and could exert more powerful power. The reason why Linger's hands are so terrifying. The flame dragon bone whip was released alone, and because of the help of Huolinger and the cover of the flames of the fire temple powerhouses, it silently approached the masked man. The masked man's attention has always been on Long Chen and Emon Yen, especially when Emon Yen and the deputy hall master of the fire temple were dueling. The Yanlong bone whip was already lurking behind him, but he didn't know it at all. It's just that Long Chen told Huolinger not to let the Yanlong bone whip do it. Once the Yanlong bone whip has killing intent on the masked man's shrewdness will inevitably sense that once he escapes, it will be difficult to catch him. Therefore, the Yanlong bone whip has always obeyed Huolinger's orders, because Huolinger only made it lurking beside the masked man, but did not tell it what to do. And artifact spirits are artifact spirits, even those of the heavenly saint soldier level. Their intelligence is not too high, especially after being imprisoned and enslaved for so long. Their intelligence has long since degenerated. Huolinger will let it do whatever it wants. It will never try to figure out other people's thoughts, and it will not take the initiative to do anything. Because of this, it is so close to the masked man, and the masked man does not feel any danger. Only when the masked man was about to escape did Huolinger give the Yanlong bone whip command. At this time, all the masked man's energy was concentrated on Long Chen's body. Any non-lethal attack would not cause his perception. Therefore, when the flame dragon bone whip bit his palm, he didn't know what happened, and at this moment, Long Chen's dragon bone evil moon was ruthlessly cut off. The masked man was shocked and angry. Even though he was unparalleled in his strategy, he was also stunned at this time. Seeing Long Chen slashed with a knife, only one hand was left open, and a boxy strange thing appeared. The east and the west are square, the whole body is black, and the stripes are crisscrossed. It turned out to be a chessboard. As soon as the chessboard appeared, countless black and white chess pieces appeared on it. Looking closely, there are thousands of runes drawn on each piece, and each piece actually contains a set of formations. Boom! Long Chen didn't have the time or the patience to look at the chessboard, so he slashed the past with a bang. The universe shook, the masked man screamed, and even the chessboard flew out, a big mouthful of blood, mixed with internal organs fragments spew out. However, what Long Chen didn't expect was that the Kiel Shiwe, which was in no way unfavorable, failed to smash the chessboard, but all the pieces on the chessboard had all turned into nothingness. Long Chen was slashed again, not giving the masked man any chance at all. The masked man was half killed by Long Chen's knife. Now that Long Chen was killed again, the chessboard in his hand turned violently, and all the blood he spit out was sucked into it. The crisscrossing straight lines on the chessboard lit up, forming a bloody color. Grid, floating on top of the chessboard. Boom! There was another explosion. This time, the masked man did not scream or make a sound. It was not that his bones were hard, but that he was directly knocked out by Long Chen's knife. But what shocked Long Chen was that the chessboard was full of cracks, but it still exploded. Long Chen ignored the broken chessboard, opened his big hands, grabbed the mask of the masked man, and ripped it off. Let me see your true face, however. When Long Chen tore off his mask and saw what he looked like, he was shocked. Chapter 49-25 What? When Long Chen tore off his mask, the masked man let out a shrill scream. When he saw the true face of the masked man, Long Chen was shocked. It was a bloody face, and the whole face was gone. Long Chen looked at the mask in his hand, and he was shocked to find that the face of the masked man was actually glued to the mask, and the moment Long Chen tore off the mask, his face was also torn off. It turns out that since you wear a mask, you will have no face to see people. It's good, so you don't lose face for your ancestors. Long Chen thought that because of this guy, Xing Wujiang had to give up his life and endure endless pain with Fang Tianyin. Destroyed together, the killing intent is skyrocketing. Call, the Kiel evil moon pierced the masked man's chest. However, what Long Chen didn't expect was that the chessboard that was shaken up appeared strangely in front of the masked man's chest, blocking the blade of the Kiel evil moon. Suddenly, the ripples on the chessboard distorted, and a transparent figure appeared on the chessboard. It was a man in gray clothes and a hat on his head. From the white hair exposed beside the hat, it could be seen that this should be an old man. The old man opened his mouth and said, "Friend, I am the chess sect of the 4 ancient sections." Long Chen was too lazy to talk nonsense with him. The Kiel evil moon glowed, and a knife slashed on the chessboard, but what Long Chen didn't expect was that a dragon-shaped phantom appeared on the chessboard, blocking Long Chen's knife. Heavenly Dragon Qi. On the chessboard, there was a celestial dragon energy. Obviously, this chessboard is a special magic weapon, and the old man on the chessboard should be a super strong man. When the masked man is in danger, he will protect him. Young people, don't be so angry. No matter what kind of grievances there are between you, I hope you can give me a face and let him go, otherwise. The old man's tone changed and seemed to threaten Long Chen. However, Long Chen responded with a bronze cauldron and smashed it against the chessboard. Boom! With a loud noise, the chessboard and the dragon energy of the heavenly vein burst into pieces, and the old man's roar came from the blasting sound. "Boy, if you dare to kill my disciple, my chess master will definitely wash your sect and slaughter your whole family. Then let me kill all your chess disciples first." Long Chen responded with Sun Lung's roar. The Kiel evil moon was cut out of Long Chen's hand, blood splashed, and the masked man, who was already in a half-dead state, was split into 2 pieces by Long Chen's knife. Puff! The Kiel evil moon slashed horizontally, cutting the 2 corpses of the masked man into 4 pieces. The masked man has always been blessed by the Wheel of Destiny, and at this time his Wheel of Destiny quickly dimmed. The legendary Son of Destiny, the darling of the 9 heavens and 10 earths, was killed just like that. Everyone in the distance felt their souls tremble. Looking at Long Chen, who was possessed by a demon king, his eyes were full of fear. "Return my brother Wujiang's life." The masked man is dead, but the pain and hatred in Long Chen's heart have not diminished in the slightest, and the keel evil moon is desperately slashing. Puff puff. The corpse of the masked man was chopped into a mist of blood. This is the real corpse. What? Long Chen shouted up to the sky. Even if the masked man was smashed into pieces, what would happen? Xing Wujiang will never come back. Although they didn't get along with Xing Wujiang for a long time, the three of them showed each other with sincerity and hated each other. No one could understand Xing Wujiang's mood better than Long Chen and Mo Nian. He didn't want to die. He hoped to be able to reproduce the former glory of the Xing family in his generation. No one cherished his life more than him, because he cared about the child he had not yet born. However, the cruel facts forced him to give up his precious life and to let go of all his worries. How can there be a hero who is not afraid of death in this world? They have no choice. They have to give up their beautiful life and their flesh and blood. Hoo-hoo. The masked man has been cut into nothingness by Long Chen, and Long Chen is still slashing desperately, and the void was cut out by Long Chen abruptly, forming a death vortex. Call. Suddenly Long Chen stopped moving, and in his eyes, black spots shone, looking like hell demon pupils. When he looked at them, those heavenly saints had their souls out of their bodies for a moment, and their bodies could not move. I want you to pay for my brother Wujiang's life. Boom! Long Chen stepped on the void burst open, and the man rushed towards the crowd like an ancient demon bird. Only by killing can he release his monstrous hatred. When Long Chen came, the group of heavenly sages were so frightened that they were about to run away, and some people shouted, "Don't run away. The space here is already chaotic. No one can beat him. Spreading out will only let him break through one by one. We must work together and work together to survive." The man shouted and immediately stabilized the heavenly saints who were present. In fact, they all knew the truth. At this time, Long Chen's body is as fast as lightning, and it is not affected by the fluctuation of the surrounding space at all, and they are in the time and space vortex at this time. This vortex is triggered when Long Chen triggers the dragon's blood battle body. Here they can't run fast at all. He used medicinal pills to forcibly increase his combat power, and it definitely won't last. It will take a few breaths at most. As long as we hold on, he will be the one who will die. He is here, and everyone will block together. There is a Tianxing strong man shouting. Buzz, hundreds of heavenly sacred powerhouses shot at the same time, and hundreds of heavenly sacred divine weapons were intertwined in the void, forming a net of death, waiting for Long Chen's attack to come. They believe that even if Long Chen is against the sky, he will never be able to resist the combined blow of hundreds of heavenly saints at the same time, and even this blow may directly kill Long Chen. They were lost before, and now they have recovered their calm. The extinguishing fire lotus, however, what they didn't expect was that before Long Chen's keel evil moon fell, a beautiful girl appeared. The girl stretched out her jade hand, and a snow-white lotus fell on their defense net. Boom! The white flame lotus exploded, and the holy ice and snow instantly covered everyone. At that moment, the expressions of all the powerhouses changed greatly. Not good. They were shocked to find that at the moment when the white flaming lotus burst, the icy aura was about to freeze their souls, and they instinctively urged power to drive away the cold air. However, in this way, their power is instantly divided into two parts. One part is used to defend against Long Chen, and the other part is used to defend against the attack of Ice Soul Divine Flame. In fact, although Huolinger's Ice Soul Divine Flame is powerful because of its own strength, it is not a big threat to Tianxing powerhouses. But this blow broke their defense balance. After all, the Ice Soul Divine Flame was the top 10 god-level flames on the Heavenly Fire ranking. It could ignore the defenses of others and freeze the soul. This kind of power directly stimulates the life instinct of this group of people to defend. In fact, if they can control this instinct and ignore it, the Ice Soul Divine Flame will attack so many people at the same time. The power is too scattered, and it will not threaten at all to them. However, in this world, few people can go against their instincts. Just when they were distracted, Long Chen's roar was like the roar of a god, opening the sky, 7 forms in one. Chapter 49:26 Long Chen's knife split thousands of paths and cut off the sky. This knife not only carries all the dragon blood power of Long Chen, but also contains the endless grief and pain in his heart. Xia Guhong, what a hero! But it can't stand the conspiracy. The lover died tragically, and he was lonely all his life, and he couldn't get out of the whirlpool in his life. The punishment is boundless, the pride is overwhelming, and the hero among the people, who bears the mission of reviving the family, but still can't end in a good life, dying with endless worries and regrets. The 5 great emperors, with their splendid appearance and stunning beauty, still failed to achieve their wishes. The old man and Chu Jianying, 2 grudge couples who fell in love and killed each other for a lifetime, finally realized the true meaning of love, but one died in battle and the other died in love. Ling Yunzi, Hu Feng, those dragon-blooded warriors who died in battle, and those unsung heroes who could not be counted, were drowned by history without even leaving their names. They may be humble or plain, but in the eyes of their relatives, they are the pillars of the sky, the unparalleled heroes in their hearts, but what they can leave to their relatives is only endless pain and sadness. Why does this world have war? Why? Long Chen's face was hideous, he clenched his teeth tightly, and blood spilled from his teeth. Why are beautiful things always destroyed by ugly and dirty things? Long Chen slashed with a knife. This knife smashed the heaven and the earth, the Wandao was stripped away, the universe was divided, and the yin and yang were staggered. Click! In Long Chen's body, there was a light sound, as if something was broken, but at this time Long Chen had been swallowed up by anger. He didn't feel anything, what he had in his heart was just the endless killing. Boom! The heavenly saber slashed down the galaxy, and the defenses condensed by hundreds of heavenly saints exploded with a bang, and the strong men under the blade, no matter what level of existence, burst into powder. The strong men on both sides of the blade were shocked with blood, and they were cracked and almost exploded. Hundreds of strong people were killed in an instant, and nearly half of the remaining people were seriously injured, and some people were even unable to move and lost their combat effectiveness. Kill! Long Chen roared, his voice was hoarse, and he rushed into the crowd with a keel and evil moon, and with a knife, the Tianxing powerhouse fell in pieces. At this time, he turned into a demon and frantically harvested their lives. On the other side, Huolinger circulated thousands of phoenixes all over her body, waving the flame keel whip in her hand, killing those heavenly sage powerhouses to cry. These celestial sages, who are high above the ground, never imagined that one day they would become the target of slaughter. The most primitive fear and yearning for life made them roar and cry unwillingly. Some people even cried and begged for mercy, but Long Chen was already mad, and he couldn't hear any sound at all. There was only one word in his mind, and that was kill. And Huolinger, let alone pay attention to them. Except for Long Chen, she has almost no feelings for others, and she will not show mercy because of their mourning. Hundreds of powerhouses were killed in an instant, and only a few dozen were left. However, these heavenly saint powerhouses fled in all directions, and the killing began to be a little slow. Long Chen, save me! Just as Long Chen was madly killing and venting his anger, Mo Nian's cry for help came from a distance, and Long Chen hurriedly looked for the reputation. I saw Mo Nian was running towards him in embarrassment, and behind him, there was a figure. The figure was disheveled, covered in blood, and there were several places on the body where the flesh was blurred and the bones were visible. The visitor carried a flaming long sword, and the statue of Brahma in the vision behind him was looming, and it was the deputy hall master of the fire temple. At this time, he was murderous, and the wounds on his body had claw marks, tooth marks, and even a slap mark on his face, but it was covered by his scattered hair. It turned out that Mo Nian used the secret method of the Boundless Palace, combined with the runes of the Imperial Way, and temporarily obtained the blessing of the power of the Imperial Way. Killing the deputy hall master of the Fire God Temple only had the ability to parry, but did not have the power to fight back. What annoyed the deputy hall master of the Fire Temple the most was that Mo Nian's offensive tactics were called rogues. There were many kinds of tactics such as grabbing, biting, scratching, and kicking the crotch. This seemingly ingenious tactics actually caused him to suffer a lot of losses. In the panic, he was slapped by Mo Nian, and he was going crazy. In fact, It's no wonder Mo Nian is not good at melee combat, and, in the underground all year round, most of them deal with ancient corpses of various organs, and there is not much experience in fighting people. Mo Nian knows that Long Chen is the king of melee combat and is invincible, so he learned a lot of tricks from Long Chen, and improved these tricks according to his own characteristics. It can be said that Mo Nian's melee strength is not weak. But he was facing the Deputy Hall Master of the Fire God Temple. He was too powerful and had to use some shady tricks. This is why he forced the Deputy Hall Master of the Fire God Temple away from the battlefield and away from everyone's sight before starting the bloody battle, mainly because he was afraid shame. After all, Mo Nian has a good face, otherwise, he would not have done so many irritating limericks and fancy moves. Mo Nian's rogue magic trick has killed the vice president of the Fire God Temple in a series of losses, making him go crazy with anger, but the fact that the vice president of the Fire God Temple can sit in that position shows that he is a person who knows how to forbear. This guy has been playing steadily, holding back his anger and letting Mo Nian perform, but he is not greedy for merit and rash, which leads to falling into Mo Nian's trap. Even Mo Nian deliberately revealed flaws many times, trying to lure the Deputy Hall Master of the Fire Temple to fight with him, but he just wasn't fooled. Long Chen stimulated him while fighting, but the Deputy Hall Master of the Fire God Temple never answered, letting Mo Nian humiliate and ridicule him. He is still me. He is waiting for an opportunity, that is, the power of the Emperor's rune begins to deplete, and once the power of the Emperor's way begins to deplete, it will be the moment when Mo Nian dies. Mo Nian tried his best, but he couldn't really hit the Deputy Hall Master of the Fire Temple. Seeing that the power of the Imperial Rune was about to subside, he had to run back and join Long Chen. After Mo Nian came back, he saw that the masked man disappeared, but there was still the fluctuation of the Sun of Destiny in the air. He knew that the masked man had been killed by Long Chen, and he saw a large number of corpses on the battlefield, and those who fled everywhere, crying father and mother. Tiansheng Powerhouse, Mo Nian is ecstatic. Long Chen has never let him down. Long Chen saw the Deputy Hall Master of the Fire God Temple behind Mo Nian at a glance. His killing intent rose again, and he rushed towards Mo Nian with the Kiel Shiyue on his back. Bang bang bang. Long Chen stepped on the void, rushing faster and faster. His momentum and speed were increasing wildly, and the 7 open sky runes of the Kiel Evil Moon on his shoulders also quickly lit up and quickly condensed together. Today's Dragon Bone Evil Moon has devoured the blood and souls of so many heavenly saints, and its own power is rapidly awakening. It no longer relies on Long Chen's power to passively exert its power. Now it can actively help Long Chen. The text is connected almost instantly. Buzz, the Kiel Evil Moon rises into the sky, slashed with a knife, and the strongest 7-in-1 is the one-shot. The power of dragon blood penetrates into the Kiel Evil Moon, and before the knife arrives, the terrifying killing intent has already overwhelmed the Deputy Hall Master of the Fire Temple. Locked firmly. Chapter 49:27 Long Chen slashed with one knife. Even the Deputy Hall Master of the Fire Temple had to fight with all his strength. The long sword in his hand was slashed horizontally, the power of faith was entangled, and the flames were soaring to the sky. Boom! The Kiel Evil Moon slashed on the long sword of the Deputy Hall Master of the Fire Temple, and the two shocking forces collided, and Long Chen and the Deputy Hall Master of the Fire Temple flew out at the same time. Puff! Both of them spurted a mouthful of blood at the same time. Those heavenly saints who escaped from the dead because of the arrival of the Deputy Hall Master of the Fire Temple saw this scene and were so frightened that they lost their minds. Who is the Vice President of the Fire Temple? That condensed the power of a Tianmai, and Long Chen could fight with him to lose both. They even wanted to kill Long Chen, which was extremely naive. At this time, they didn't even dare to continue to watch. They were lucky to escape as far as they went. If it wasn't for Mo Nian who led the Deputy Hall Master of the Fire Temple, they would have died under Long Chen's sword, or they would have died in Huolinger's hands. Boom! Just as Long Chen and the Deputy Hall Master of the Fire God Temple were fighting for both losses, Huolinger had thousands of phoenixes flowing around, and the Yanlong bone whip in his hand slammed towards the deputy hall master of the fire god temple. Court death. The deputy hall master of the fire temple was shocked by Long Chen's knife and vomited blood, and he was shocked and angry. Boom! With a loud bang, the flame dragon bone whip exploded into dozens of segments. Huolinger groaned and flew out backwards, her figure quickly dimmed. After going through the battle, Huolinger's consumption is also extremely terrifying. After all, the ones she killed were all heavenly saint-level powerhouses, but the most important thing was that her strength needed to support 2 top-quality heavenly holy weapons. At that time, she was already at the end of the battle, unable to withstand the attack of the deputy hall master of the fire temple. Kakaka. However, after the flame dragon bone whip was broken, it was immediately spliced together again and returned to its original appearance. This flame dragon bone whip is a super powerful weapon. If it encounters an unbearable force, it will automatically disconnect and remove the opponent's power is consumed to ensure that he will not be destroyed. Huolinger took a reckless blow and suffered a big loss. Long Chen directly took her back into the chaotic space. Although Huolinger is strong enough, ordinary Tianqing powerhouses can't even take her one move, but facing the deputy of the Fire God Temple Hallmaster, there is still a big gap. In order to prevent the 2 magic weapons from being exploded, Long Chen asked Huolinger to return to the chaotic space to quickly replenish physical strength, and also replenish energy for the 2 magic weapons. Screw you. The deputy hall master of the Fire God Temple had just hit Huolinger heavily when he was slapped by Mo Nian in the back. This guy Mo Nian was also insidious enough. Boom! Mo Nian's palm was firmly stamped on the back of the deputy hall master of the Fire God Temple. This palm contained the power of the Emperor's Way. Even the deputy hall master of the Fire God Temple couldn't take it. Long Chen had just fought hard with the deputy hall master of the Fire God Temple, and his body was numb from the shock. If he is in his prime, with such a good chance, he has a 50% certainty that he can kill him with one knife. However, his body is in a state of paralysis. Seeing the deputy hall master of the Fire God Temple flying over, he instinctively slapped it. "Fuck you at S," snapped. Long Chen slapped the face of the deputy hall master of the Fire God Temple firmly, and a huge force hit. The deputy hall master of the Fire God Temple was slapped over, and Long Chen was also shocked by the anti-shock force of the deputy hall master of the Fire God Temple. Gotta step back again. You 2 little beasts die for Lao Tzu. Consecutive losses, the deputy hall master of the Fire God Temple fell into madness, and he had never experienced such humiliation in his life. The deputy hall master of the Fire God Temple put away his long sword, sealed his hands, and roared loudly, "God of Brahma, please obey the call of your devout followers and grant me divine power. Cut him off." At this time, Chen Kuanding's voice sounded in Long Chen's mind, and Chen Kuanding's voice was a little urgent. Obviously, it saw the horror of this move. However, at this moment, Long Chen suddenly felt weak, and the flame on his body slowly subsided. At this critical moment, the medicinal effect of the Dragon Blood Extreme Yang pill has subsided. Although the power of the Dragon Blood can continue to burn, without the blessing of the Dragon Blood Extreme Yang pill, the power of the Dragon Blood Battle Body cannot threaten the Temple of Fire at all. Vice President. 7-star Battle Body now. Long Chen roared in his heart, the power of the dragon's blood receded, the battle of the stars was summoned, the sea of stars flowed behind him, and the pattern of the 7-pointed star appeared. Buzz, at the same time, Long Chen took out one thing, it was a bone claw covered with stars. When the bone claw appeared, it instantly blurred, like a glove, on Long Chen's right hand. When the star bone claws were blessed on Long Chen's hand, on Long Chen's arm, the stars flowed rapidly, forming thousands of vortexes, the violent power, even Long Chen himself was afraid. At this time, Long Chen didn't have time to study the changes of the star's bone claws, put away the Keel Evil Moon, and punched the deputy hall master of the Fire Temple with a punch. At this time, the deputy hall master of the Fire God Temple, with a statue standing behind him, the radiance of the gods falling, wrapping him tightly. The outside world is already a cage of heaven and earth, blocking the whole world. The deputy hall master of the fire temple has been mad. At this time, he can no longer care about the terrible price he has to bear after using this trick. He has only one purpose now, which is to kill Long Chen and Emon Yen. This trick of his has used the power of his faith for countless years. Only the power of faith is strong enough to withstand the power of Brahma. However, the power of Brahma is extremely terrifying. Even if he uses this trick, will also be injured, and there will be no recovery in a few years. Even bad luck will damage the source, and it will be impossible to restore to the original without cultivation for hundreds of years, but at this time, he can no longer care about that much. Boom! Long Chen slammed into the chest of the deputy hall master of the fire god temple with a punch, and with a loud bang, the stars were brilliant, like the Milky Way pouring out, and the whole world was shaking. This blow is very powerful, even stronger than Long Chen's 7-in-1. However, what shocked Long Chen is that his blow did not break the protective light of the deputy hall master of the fire temple. Boom! At this moment, Emon Yen also slapped the back of the deputy hall master of the fire god temple with a palm. Similarly, he also had a look of astonishment. His blow still did not hurt the deputy hall master of the fire god temple. It's over, my imperial power is about to disappear. Emon Yen exclaimed, looking at the gradually transparent rune in his palm. Boom boom boom. Emon Yen even tried several attacks, but none of them could break through the protective light of the deputy head of the fire temple. At that moment, Emon Yen's face changed. At this time, the deputy hall master of the fire temple, with his eyes closed and a solemn expression, ignored them at all. It seemed that he knew that the two of them could not help him. He was still praying, and the whole world was constantly twisting. Long Chen, do you have any other tricks? Emon Yen exclaimed. He found that he couldn't help this guy. I have. Long Chen took a deep breath, pressed his right hand on the chest of the deputy hall master of the fire god temple, and his left hand on his right arm. The stars flowed in his eyes and gradually formed a 10 character. Buzz, countless strange symbols appeared in the palm of Long Chen's right hand. The symbols merged with each other and finally formed a cross. When the cross appeared, the star C and the 7-pointed star behind Long Chen disappeared in an instant, and they all merged into the 10. In words. Long Chen sighed, Xingzihan, Cross Destroyer God. Chapter 49:28. As Long Chen stopped drinking, the cross in Long Chen's palm glowed, and it was faintly visible that countless stars and symbols merged, just like the universe was melting and suddenly bursting open. Boom! The word cross escaped from Long Chen's palm and shot out. Long Chen's bone claws burst into pieces. Even with the protection of bone claws, Long Chen's right hand was still blown to pieces, and the man snorted and flew out. Puff! And the 10, wrapped by the stars, directly penetrated the divine power barrier and was printed on the chest of the deputy hall master of the fire god temple. Call, when the body of the deputy hall master of the fire temple shattered, the Keel evil moon automatically flew out and began to frantically devour those blood essence. And the voice of prayer of the deputy hall master of the fire temple stopped abruptly, and Long Chen's blow interrupted the condensation of his spells. Long Chen stepped back, and a mouthful of blood spurted out. He never thought that this cross would be so terrifying, and even the bone claws could not bear it. It will instantly explode and die. The power of this blow was terrifying, the bone claws couldn't bear it, and the body of the deputy hall master of the fire temple couldn't bear it and turned into nothingness. When Emon Yen saw this scene, he shouted excitedly, but he only called halfway and then stopped abruptly. He was shocked to find that the figure of the deputy hall master of the fire temple was still standing above the void. However, at this time, he is not his real body, but his primordial spirit. Long Chen can destroy his physical body, but he cannot destroy his primordial spirit. His primordial spirit was enveloped by the power of endless faith. At this moment, his eyes were almost spitting out fire, and his face was completely distorted, making people almost unable to recognize him. Dare to destroy my body and die. The deputy hall master of the fire temple roared, his hands were sealed, and above the 9 heavens, a fire god spear roared, and above the flame spear, there was endless divine might. Before the spear arrived, the terrifying coercion had already made the dragon Chen and Emon Yen cracked. Brother Long Chen asked me to come. Huolinger volunteered to rush out of the chaotic space. No, this hit contains the will of Brahma, and you will be killed. Long Chen refused directly. Although he interrupted the power storage of the deputy hall master of the fire god temple, even so, the power that the deputy hall master of the fire god temple had obtained was enough to kill them thousands of times. This kind of power is beyond the scope of Long Chen's understanding. Although Huolinger is the spirit of flames, there is still the danger of being killed. Long Chen must not let her take risks. At this time, the power of Long Chen's dragon blood was lacking, and the power of the stars was exhausted by the blow of the cross. Now, in the face of this terrifying blow, as soon as Long Chen gritted his teeth, he would have to use the eyes of purgatory. Long Chen has no idea whether his eyes can block this blow, but he has to give it a try, otherwise they will all die. Let me. However, at this time, Emon Yen stood up, his hands were sealed, and a huge coffin appeared. As soon as the coffin came out, the heaven and the earth roared, and the endless imperial aura intertwined. Long Chen was stunned. Emon Yen, this guy, actually still has a whole card, and the power of the imperial way of this coffin is no weaker than the coercion of the arrow of the imperial way. Emon Yen was holding the coffin and said with a painful expression, "This is the treasure I got after 9 deaths. Unfortunately, my strength is limited and I can't extract the royal rune on it. Otherwise, I can kill this guy alone." Emon Yen was extremely unwilling. The royal rune on the coffin was even more powerful. Unfortunately, no matter how powerful it was, it couldn't be used, and it didn't make any sense. Buzz, Emon Yen roared, the coffin shot straight into the sky, and Wandao collapsed under its pressure, directly facing the blow of the deputy hall master of the fire temple. At the same time, Emon Yen threw out more than a dozen array plates in one go. The array plates glowed, and the light curtains appeared, protecting Long Chen and Emon Yen in it. Emon Yen just finished arranging these. Boom! With a loud bang, Long Chen and Emon Yen's eyes went black, and they lost consciousness instantly. They felt as if their bodies were torn apart, like ants stepped on by a group of elephants, and they felt their bodies were squashed. It seems that hundreds of millions of years have passed, and it seems that it has only passed for a moment. Long Chen regained consciousness. The eyes are pitch black. Long Chen drilled out of the soil, and the whole world is already dark. Pooh! At this time, Emon Yen also got out of the mud, and immediately spit out the mud in his mouth. At this time, both of them were extremely weak. Even if a beast came to eat them, they could not resist. What about that guy? Emon Yen looked at the void and found that the whole world had lost its original appearance, and the void was dark. If they weren't extremely confident, others would have thought they were dead and came to another world. Should be dead, he is at the center of the impact, and only Yuanshan is left, and the probability of surviving is extremely low. Long Chen sensed it carefully but found nothing because he was too weak, and his perception was greatly reduced. Range, no, I can see far. Brother, your move is really awesome. Emon Yen smiled and gave a thumbs up. Long Chen's cross-destroying god was too terrifying. That's not thanks to you. If you didn't give me the claws of the stars, I couldn't bear that kind of power at all. Also, if it wasn't for your last coffin, we would all have to die. Long Chen couldn't help sighing. After he finished speaking, he struggled to pull himself out of the soil. After climbing out, Long Chen suddenly felt a whirlwind and almost fainted. He was too weak. Hey each other, hello, give me a hand. Emon Yen struggled a few times and found that he had no strength at all, so he asked Long Chen for help. Long Chen finally pulled Emon Yen out of the soil. Both of them were tired like dogs, lying on the ground and gasping for breath. Buzz, suddenly, a snake spear roared from the void, stabbing the two of them like a bolt of lightning. Snapped, suddenly a flame dragon bone whip flew out, shaking the snake's spear into the air, and a figure appeared in front of them. That person was none other than the descendant of the demon corpse. One of his arms was broken, and the other hand was holding a spear. Looked at the two of them with a grim look. I didn't expect you to be so strong, but unfortunately, you will eventually die in my hands. The demon race powerhouse walked over with a grim expression. What about the deputy hall master of the fire temple? In the face of the demon powerhouse, Longchen said coldly, the mantis catching the cicada oriole behind, this guy is really calm and has been lurking around. He's not dead, but his primordial spirit is about to collapse, and he has to flee back to recuperate. Those who have something to do with the fire god temple are using their primordial spirit power to protect him from the fire of his primordial spirit going out, otherwise, how can it be my turn to pick up the leak? Hey, they all said that you were dead, but I don't believe it. I stayed here for 3 days and 3 nights, and you finally came out. The emperor paid off, I can finally take revenge. The demon strong man had a gloomy and authentic face. With me here, you can't hurt my brother Longchen. Huolinger turned into a flame girl, blocking the way of the demon powerhouse. The demon strong man snorted coldly, hey, a little flame spirit also wants to stop me? What if you have 2 top-quality weapons? They are already half dead in this position. I don't need to attack. They, even with the aftermath, can shock them to death. How can you stop them? Hey boy, you're still too young, and your master MO may not be able to do anything else, but when it comes to escaping, I consider myself second, and no one dares to take first. Don't say it's you, even the 10 deputy hall masters of the fire temple can't stop me. As long as I have a breath, no one can kill me. Mo Nien sneered. Buzz, the demon powerhouse suddenly felt bad and launched an attack directly. However, at this time, the bodies of Longchen and Mo Nien had begun to blur, and even Longchen didn't know when Mo Nien did his hands and feet. Boy, just wait. If you have a predestined relationship, Master Mo will take your life with your own hands next time. Call, Longchen, Mo Nien and Huolinger disappeared at the same time. Boom, the snake spear in the hands of the demon strong man stabbed the ground fiercely and let out an unwilling roar. Chapter 49-29 Call, Longchen and Mo Nien popped out of the void, fell to the ground, and rolled around for a few laps before they stopped. At this time, the two of them didn't even have the strength to stabilize their bodies. It's abominable. The deputy hall master of the fire god temple didn't die. Longchen clenched his fists with a look of unwillingness. Mo Nien comforted, it's okay, cut off his body, broken his foundation, and remodeling the body will definitely not be able to return to its original state, reborn, and have to give up everything that he currently has. He has to start all over again. Not necessarily that courage. Also, that demon race kid said that his primordial spirit almost collapsed. He couldn't survive this kind of injury, so don't think too much about it. Longchen took out 2 pills, threw one to Mo Nien, and swallowed the other for himself. Longchen's pills were all top-level healing pills. After swallowing, he recovered a little strength and sat up. The body is depleted so badly, I don't have a few days to recover. Longchen opened his eyes and found that his body was injured more seriously than he imagined. In particular, the anti-shock force of the attack of the cross destroying the gods almost exploded his meridians. That move is not something he can control now. If it wasn't for the star bone claws that Mo Nien gave him, he would be dead. The thought of the star bone claws, Longchen was heartbroken. The bone claws contained the power of the stars, and Longchen was destroyed before he had time to study it. It won't work if you don't recover. We don't have that much time. Can you do it? Mo Nien looked at Longchen. Come on, you should be able to fight hard. Longchen gritted his teeth. The two of them were buried underground for 3 days. Although they were in a coma, their bodies were also repairing themselves, and they had accumulated some energy. Now they were supported by medicinal pills and began to recover quickly. That day, Xin Yen used the imperial rune on the coffin to take a blow from the deputy hall master of the fire god temple. The blow directly detonated the imperial rune. The deputy hall master of the fire god temple was in the core area, and he had the strongest strength. At this time, he didn't have time to check the life and death of the two of Long Chen, and immediately called on those strong people to escort him away. After all, this is a place of right and wrong. Who knows if there are strong people around to peep, let alone if it will attract other people in a while. Even if he is the deputy hall master of the fire temple, if he encounters an enemy, at this time he is no different from a lamb to be slaughtered, and an ordinary heavenly saint powerhouse can kill him. Some strong people escorted the deputy hall master of the fire god temple away for the first time, and some strong people did not give up and wanted to find the broken pieces of divine weapons here. You must know that such pieces are also extremely precious. I want to look for Long Chen and Mo Nian, although no one of them thinks that Long Chen and Mo Nian will be alive. After all, the powerful Yuanshan of the level of the deputy hall master of the fire temple has been shattered. However, if they find the residual limbs or relics of the two, they can also claim credit to the fire temple. However, their abacus is too good, and when they enter the edge of the battlefield, they are shocked to find that the laws of this battlefield have been broken. Not to mention that the laws are very chaotic. When the heavenly saint level powerhouse enters, the magnetic field here will unbalance the power of the heavenly Tao in their bodies, which is extremely dangerous for them, so they give up directly. And those disciples of the God Venerable Realm, not to mention, they didn't even have the courage to step into the battlefield. The will of the Emperor on the battlefield caused severe pain in their souls, and they couldn't bear it at all. Therefore, everyone else gave up, and some people calculated that if they wanted to enter this battlefield, they would have to wait at least 1,000 years for the power of the Emperor to dissipate. Only the demon powerhouse didn't give up. He had been watching the bloody battle from a distance. It could be said that he saw the end from the beginning. However, he never showed up. The deputy hall master of the fire god temple left immediately without confirming that Long Chen and Mo Nian were dead and alive, and part of the reason was related to him. The relationship between the demon race and the fire temple is complicated. They are neither enemies nor friends. Sometimes they cooperate, sometimes they turn against each other. Although this demon race powerhouse is only God Venerable Realm, he is a natural child and has the strength to kill him. He did not dare to take the risk and escaped immediately. This is also the reason why when Long Chen and Mo Nian were unearthed, only the strong demons were standing beside them. In fact, Long Chen and Mo Nian are also lucky. Their breath is covered by the will of the Emperor, and the strong demons dare not probe with their spiritual sense, so they can only guard on the periphery. After discovering Long Chen and Mo Nian, they ran over with difficulty, and even their attacks would be weakened and biased by the laws here. Mo Nian has studied the talisman on the coffin, and has a certain understanding of its power. Before it burst, he added a protective barrier to himself and Long Chen. Otherwise, even if the two of them had 10 lives, it would not be enough. Only Mo Nian can escape with Long Chen under the pressure of the Emperor. This battle is extremely thrilling. It can be said that it is the result of the parallel of strength and luck. From the current point of view, it is also the best result. At least, Mo Nian is very satisfied. However, the two did not have time to rest. Mo Nian had already begun to construct a teleportation array, and said while busy, "I hope Big Brother Wujiang is blessed by the spirit of heaven, and I hope we can still have time." After listening to Mo Nian's words, Long Chen clenched his fists. It has been 3 days. Gao Jianli and Chao Gufeng will definitely take action against the Xing family. This is why they have no time to heal. Before the Tianmu mountain battle, I saw the Yulua patriarch hiding in the dark. I sent her a voice transmission and asked her to rush back to Demon City immediately and pick up everyone in the City Lord's mansion. I just don't know if the 4 great families and the Fire God Temple will take one step ahead, and now we need to confirm it. Long Chen gritted his teeth. At that time, the patriarch Yulua came to support Long Chen. At that moment, Long Chen kept an eye on her and asked her to help. However, now it seems that all this is the layout of the Fire Temple, and the Fire Temple is likely to leave Fufu in Xingwujiang. After the Magic City, he started immediately, and the probability that the Patriarch Yulua would be thrown into the air was very high. If I said yes, Mo Nian said silently, Do not talk. Long Chen shook his head. He knew what Emon Yen wanted to say, but he dared not accept this if. Walk. At this moment, Emon Yen's teleportation formation had been constructed. Long Chen and Emon Yen stepped onto the teleportation formation, and the void trembled for a while, and then the scene in front of them turned, and Demon City appeared in front of them again. However, the Demon City is still the same as it was, but without the blessing of Feng Tianyin, it seems to be just an empty shell. The once splendid building has become dull and even cracked, as if it will collapse at any time. Generally, Feng Tianyin is gone, the demon show is gone, and the Demon City can no longer subdue the demon. It is dead and no longer has its former glory. Today, the Demon City will collapse with just a gust of wind. The 4 city guards are still there. When Long Chen and Emon Yen stood in front of the city, they sensed and immediately caught the breath of Gao Jianli, Chao Gufeng and others. However, when their divine senses probed into the city lord's mansion, their hearts sank to the bottom in an instant. Chapter 49:30 Long Chen and Emon Yen rushed into the Demon City for the first time, which immediately caused the exclamation of countless powerhouses. Obviously, they recognized the identities of Long Chen and Emon Yen. After all, in the battle 3 days ago, Long Chen and Emon Yen slaughtered nearly 1,000 heavenly saints, the Son of Destiny was killed by Long Chen himself, and the Deputy Hall Master of the Fire Temple was destroyed physically. Yuanshan almost crashed. Now, in addition to the people from the 4 major families in Fumo City, the rest are all moved. After all, if Fumo City lost Feng Tianyin, it was equivalent to entering a state of death. The city lost even the most basic city defense, and no one dared to be here. Stay for a long time, otherwise the monsters will kill without even a barrier. In fact, many forces have long sensed the crisis, and they began to evacuate before Tianmu Mountain opened, and now the evacuation is basically the last batch. In the battle between Long Chen and Emon Yen in front of Tianmu Mountain, even if the fire temple was deliberately blocked, there was nothing they could do. After all, there were too many people who saw that scene. These people were doing the final relocation. At this moment, they suddenly saw the figures of Long Chen and Emon Yen appear. Some people were so shocked that they even dropped the things in their hands. God, what did I see? It's them, yes, it's them. They are still alive. For a time, countless people screamed, because according to rumors, Long Chen and Emon Yen had been killed by the Deputy Hall Master of the Fire Temple. Long Chen and Emon Yen ignored the screams and didn't care that others would recognize them. They flickered and came to the city lord's mansion, only to find that the place had become a piece of rubble. At that moment, the hearts of Long Chen and Emon Yen kept sinking, and the scene they least wanted to see appeared. Boom! At this moment, countless tyrannical breaths rose into the sky, rushing from all directions. Gao Jianli, Chao Gufeng, the master of Tianxin Hall and the master of Huangquan Pavilion, all came. When they looked at Long Chen, their eyes were full of shock and ecstasy. They led their respective sect powerhouses to firmly surround Long Chen and Emon Yen. Boy, your life is so big you didn't die? Gao Jianli looked at Long Chen with greed in his eyes. I just escaped, but I didn't look for a place to heal my wounds. I went here to check on Xing Wujiang's family. Hee, you two are really loyal. The Lord of the Tianxin Temple said with a smile. It's true that there is a way to heaven and you don't go, and there is no way to go to hell. No matter how big your life is, you can't stand your toss. The pavilion master of Huangquan Pavilion also laughed. The 4 city guards were also in front of Tianmu Mountain at the beginning, but they did not participate in the war, because they were doing a more important thing at that time. Today I will see how you die. Chao Gufeng sneered and waved his hand. Buzzing, following Chao Gufeng's movements, the others also moved, and each of them held a large golden seal in their hands. When the big seal appeared, Emon Yen's expression changed. Feng Tianyin's breath? How is this possible? The golden seal in the hands of Chao Gufeng and others has the aura of Feng Tianyin. Maybe its aura is much weaker, but that kind of fluctuation is definitely not wrong. Haha, that idiot Xing Wujiang wants to destroy Feng Tianyin. Before Feng Tianyin was destroyed, He divided most of his power into our 4 divine seals. Speaking of which, we have to thank him. Tianxin Temple, the hall master laughed, and the wrinkles on his face trembled, looking both disgusting and terrifying. It turned out that the reason why they did not participate in the battle was that they were trying their best to absorb the power left by Fang Tianin, and Fang Tianin was destroyed by Xing Wujiang. But it was not willing to die like this. It released most of its power and was absorbed by the 4 golden seals. They absorbed not only the energy of Fang Tianin, but also its will. Fang Tianin hopes to retain his obsession in this way so that it is not completely dead. They concentrated on absorbing Fang Tianin's power, so they escaped in the end. However, they were not convinced and believed that if they could absorb Fang Tianin's power earlier, they would not need the deputy hall master of the fire temple, and they could easily take down Long Chen and Emon Yen. Because according to their statement, they absorbed at least about 60% of Fang Tianin's power, which is enough to kill any strong person. So Long Chen and Emon Yen came, carrying the Yue of the Tianmu Mountain battle, but they were not afraid at all, but with endless surprises, they felt that Long Chen and Emon Yen were self-defeating. The most important thing is that the breath of Long Chen and Emon Yen fluctuated, and they were obviously still seriously injured, and they were more confident. Say, what about the family members of Big Brother Wujiang? Long Chen roared. These golden seals, Long Chen, are not afraid. As long as they dare to use them, Long Chen will dare to use Qiankuan Cauldron to smash them. Qiankuan Cauldron cannot kill people, but there is no problem in destroying this kind of thing. They've all been slashed by us, we've cut the grass and roots, and we haven't even spared the baby they just gave birth to. What? Do you want to avenge them? Come on. Tianxin Temple said with a gloomy smile. Then you will be buried together. At that moment, Long Chen's killing intent was overwhelming. Don't listen to them, Xing Wujiang's family members have long since been transferred. At this moment, a beautiful voice came. Rainfall Patriarch. Hearing that voice, Long Chen and Emon Yen were overjoyed and turned to look, and they saw Patriarch Yulua and the elders of the 4 guardian clans coming out. Many thanks to Yulua Patriarch. Hearing Yuluo's answer, the boulder in Long Chen's heart was completely put down. He was full of gratitude to Yulua, and being able to save Xing Wujiang's family could be regarded as an explanation for him. Ashamed, in fact, when we rushed back, the Xing family had already evacuated. It should have been known by the city lord that this trip was auspicious, and all the arrangements were made. Yulua Patriarch said with a shameful expression. When Long Chen heard it, he immediately understood. No wonder Xing Wujiang had been talking about fate and luck before, and he had long anticipated that this trip would be a life-and-death experience. He tried to fight and fight, but unfortunately he failed to fight his fate in the end. Thinking of this, Long Chen and Emon Yen both sighed, but the only thing that is gratifying is that Xing Wujiang has children. Shut up, you bitch, go to hell. The hall master of Tianxin Temple roared. She is an old woman with goose skin, and the most annoying thing is to see those beautiful women, especially the jealousy of the Patriarch Yulua. At this time, she finally found the opportunity, the golden seal in her hand glowed, and the vast Shunwei instantly made the entire demon city tremble. Seeing the Heavenly Heart Hall's master attacking, the Patriarch Yulua snorted coldly, his hands formed a seal, the vision behind his back opened, and a giant tree that lifted the sky appeared, which was the tree god of the Yuling clan. Long Chen snorted coldly, and had already communicated with the Qiankuan Cauldron. As long as she dared to sacrifice the golden seal, Long Chen would use the Qiankuan Cauldron to smash it. It is inconvenient for Qiankuan Ding to fight recklessly with people. I am afraid that after the explosion of other people's weapons, people will be shocked to death, which will be contaminated with the power of blood and soul, which will not only seriously affect the effect of its alchemy, but also slow down its recovery speed. That is unacceptable to it and Long Chen. However, Qiankuan Ding was never afraid of the weapons that came out of his hands, and Long Chen was waiting for his golden seal to let go, but at this moment, a shocking change occurred. Boom! Originally, the golden seal was powerful and imposing, quite like Fang Tianyan's coercive posture, but after only a moment of effort, a rune of the purple gold seal appeared on the golden seal. Boundless punishment. When they saw the rune of the purple gold seal, the 4 city guards exclaimed at the same time. Crack! In their horror, the golden seal of the hall master of Tianxin Temple was instantly covered with cracks. Boom! Then it exploded and fell out of her hands. Chapter 49:31 Woe! The golden seal shattered, and golden powder scattered. One moment ago, the golden seal was arrogant, and the next moment, it was scattered into powder. The hall master of Tianxin Temple was stunned, and Gao Jianli and others were also stunned. They looked at the large golden seal in their hands, and a purple symbol appeared, and that symbol was a purple gold seal. Looking at the shape, it was the purple gold main seal in Xing Wujiang's hands. At that moment, they were terrified. They could not have imagined that after Xing Wujiang's death, he even left behind. He not only stopped Fang Tianyin from destroying, but also contained the power of his ancestral lines in the power of Fang Tianyin. When the golden seal in their hands absorbed Fang Tianyin's power, they also took in the power of Xing Wujiang. If it is normal, Xing Wujiang's power will not appear. Only when they use Fang Tianyin's power, Xing Wujiang's ancestral power will appear and kill it. I have to say that the ancestral lines of the Xing family are extremely domineering. Even if Xing Wujiang has died, the power of his ancestral lines has been stuck in all the power of Fang Tianyin, and he cannot break free. Kakaka! At this moment, the golden seals in the hands of Gao Jianli, Chao Guofeng, and the pavilion master of Huangquan Pavilion were cracked at the same time, and then scattered like that. A breeze blew, and the golden debris flew, and it blew away not only powder, it is Fang Tianyin's Yue. In this regard, Fang Tianyin left no trace in this world, and everything dissipated with the wind. Fuck you /mom/is. Emon Yen dodged and came to the head of the Tianxin Temple, waved his hand, and with a crisp sound, something slapped the face of the head of the Tianxin Temple, slammed him into a stagger, and flew out. Emon Yen held a shoe in his hand. Obviously, he didn't want to touch the old face of the temple master of Tianxin Palace, so he used the soul to pump instead. Die! The temple master of Tianxin Temple was furious and roared. His whole body was billowing with energy, a posture that he was going to fight with Emon Yen, but the moment he raised his leg, the person retreated like lightning. Puff! At this moment, a guardian elder behind the patriarch Yulua shot out an arrow. The arrow crossed a strange arc, pierced from the temple on the left side of the temple master of Tianxin Hall, and flew out from the temple on the right side. The speed of this arrow is not very fast, and the trajectory of the flight swept across the route where the temple master of Tianxin Temple retreated. The most terrifying thing is that the elder of the Guardian clan grasped the timing so well. When the arrow flew past, the temple master of Tianxin Temple retreated, just blocking his head in the direction of the arrow's flight, and an arrow pierced through his head. The body of the temple master of Tianxin Temple was shocked, and he fell down like that. This arrow directly killed her primordial spirit. Feather spirit killing soul arrow. The expressions of Chao Guofeng and others changed. Although they had heard that the Feather Spirit clan's Feather Spirit extinguishing soul arrow was extremely terrifying, if they were shot at the key point, they had the ability to directly kill the Heavenly Sage powerhouse. Although Yuling Mie soul arrow is very famous, they have always been skeptical of such rumors, but now they don't doubt it anymore. Losing the golden seal, facing the 2 super geniuses Long Chen and Emon Yen, and the 5 other people including Yulua Patriarch are here, the 3 of them have no chance at all. Although the bodies of Long Chen and Emon Yen are still recovering, their combat power must not be very good, but these 2 people have slaughtered thousands of heavenly saints. Even if they are in a weak state, they may have the strength to kill them. Fight, dare not fight, escape, and dare not escape, because there is a sharpshooter of the Yuling clan, and running away is equivalent to handing over his life directly to others. The pavilion master of Tianxin Pavilion is the best example. Soul-killing soul arrow has long eyes. Dean Longchen, in fact, there is some misunderstanding between us. Under the pressure, Chao Guofeng forced out a smile, but that smile was uglier than crying. All of this is our fault. All of this is the bewitchment of the demon corpse. We are forced to do so. If we don't obey, it will kill us. Long Chen looked at Chao Guofeng coldly. Without saying a word, this kind of nonsense can deceive a 3-year-old child, and a 4-year-old child may not be fooled. Seeing that Long Chen didn't speak with a cold face, and Emon Yen's eyes rolled around, no one knew what he was thinking, but even with his knees, he knew that this guy would definitely not think of anything good. Dean Long Chen, all of this is my fault. I have no eyes, I am extremely stupid, one person does things for one person, I hope you can raise your hand, for the sake of Ziqiong and Ziyu, let me Zichen go. Sect disciple, as for my head, you can take it at any time. Gao Jianli suddenly stood up and sighed. Call, with his long sword in hand, the 4 elders of the Guardian clan suddenly bowed like a full moon, but saw him reverse the long sword and hand the hilt to Long Chen, with a generous look of sacrifice. I didn't expect you to lose your face, but you still have such a trace of backbone. Emon Yen said with some surprise. Gao Jianli originally had only half of his face, but was pulled out by Long Chen again, and it has not fully grown yet, and is still a blur of flesh and blood. Emon Yen didn't expect that he had a bit of backbone and was willing to use his head to extinguish Long Chen's anger and leave a chance for the disciples. Snapped, Long Chen reached out and took the long sword that Gao Jianli handed over, and a mocking smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. If Gao Jianli's blood was not so stable, Long Chen would believe him. Only a person with a calm mood can stabilize his qi and blood, but Gao Jianli's qi and blood was deliberately suppressed. To put it bluntly, his heart was full of tension and fear. On the surface, he was filled with generosity. However, I have to say that Gao Jianli is also a hero, willing to admit defeat. Even if he is gambling, he still needs that courage, which is still admirable. Just at this point, Long Chen doesn't plan to kill him, and after experiencing this, it can be regarded as giving him a chance to reform, although Long Chen rarely gives such opportunities in his life. However, at this moment, a roar came, "Don't trust him." At this moment, a roar came from a distance, and at that moment, Gao Jianli's eyes suddenly showed a look of horror, and he shouted angrily, "Shut up for me, why can't I trust him?" The person who shouted was a disciple in the costume of the Zichen sect. He looked very handsome, and his appearance was somewhat similar to Lu Ziyu. When he saw the man, Long Chen immediately recognized that he was the Lu family's disciple who accompanied him and Emon Yen to watch the battle. It should be Lu Ziyu's cousin or cousin. He yelled anxiously, but Gao Jianli let out a roar, his voice condensed into a line, and the disciple was shocked to spurt blood and crack his whole body. Fortunately, his strength was good, otherwise he would be directly shocked to death. The disciple of Zichen's sect spurted blood, but still roared, "He killed my 2 sisters." When they heard the disciple's words, Long Chen and Emon Yen's faces suddenly turned cold. Chapter 49-32. When Gao Jianli saw this, his face suddenly turned hideous, and when he lifted his sleeves, a black light pierced Long Chen's chest like lightning. Long Chen, be careful, the head of the Yulua clan was taken aback. Long Chen was very close to him, and Gao Jianli's movements were extremely concealed. No one thought that there was a hidden arrow in Gao Jianli's sleeve. When the long sword in Long Chen's hand was slightly crooked, and with a loud noise, the long sword in Long Chen's hand was shaken out together with the black light. At this time, Long Chen was still recovering, and his body was still weak. He used his skill to shake the black light away, and the long sword flew out, but he himself was not strong, so he would not be hurt in the slightest. "You dare to show off this kind of trick? I know what you are, pretending to be a hero in front of me? It's really blinding your dog's eyes." Long Chen sneered. Puff puff. At this moment, 4 arrows stabbed his shoulders and legs respectively. At that moment, Gao Jian left his face like ashes, and all his strength was sealed by the arrows. At this time he could not survive. Can't beg to die. Puff puff. Just as the elders of the 4 guardian clans attacked Gao Jianli, the pavilion master of Huangquan Pavilion and Chao Guofeng fled immediately, and an arrow pierced their heads, killing both of them at the same time. The person who shot it was the patriarch Yulua. On her long bow, she lit up the sky, and the movement of pulling the bow was so elegant and graceful that Emon Yen was stunned, almost drooling. Mo Nian can't wait to worship Yulua Patriarch as his teacher right away. He doesn't ask for any powerful lethality, he just wants to move quickly and handsomely. Of the 4 city guards, 3 were killed, 1 was captured, and the rest of the strong were so frightened that they did not dare to move. Senior brother Long Chen. I beg you to avenge my sister. At this moment, the disciple of the Zichen sect ran over, disregarding his injury, and shouted loudly. What happened? Mo Nian stepped forward and hurriedly supported him. At the same time, he fed him a healing pill to temporarily suppress his injury and let him speak more quickly. After the disciple swallowed the medicinal pill, when asked about the situation, his face was raining and he cried out, "Before the Tianmu mountain battle, Gao Jianli was despicable and shameless, and let Sister Ziyu and Sister Ziqiong be the bait, trying to deceive you to rescue. He tied up Sister Ziyu and Sister Ziqiong and threatened you as hostages. At that time, you were fighting with the deputy master of the fire temple, and they wanted to use my 2 sisters to distract you. I have pity on my 2 sisters, they are stubborn, unwilling to be a pawn for others, let alone betray their friends, and blew themselves to death." When the disciple said this, he couldn't speak any longer and wept loudly. At this time, the strong men of Zichen sect lowered their heads one by one, daring not to look at him, let alone look at Long Chen. The killing intent of Long Chen and Mo Nian rose to the sky in an instant. They were fighting bloody at the time, and they didn't know what happened. When Long Chen looked at Gao Jianli with bloody eyes, Gao Jianli sneered, "Yes, those 2 sluts deserve to die, how about you? You killed me and avenged them? Ha, even if you kill me, they won't survive, ha." Gao Jianli shouted madly, he knew that he would not be able to live today. He deliberately stimulated Long Chen, just hoping that Long Chen would give him a good time. Eye of Purgatory, memory reappears. Long Chen's eyes turned black, and with a roar, the Eye of Purgatory was activated. What? Long Chen's left eye was tightly closed, and in the endless darkness in his right eye, a flame was burning. At the same time that the flame was burning, the black flames around Gao Jianli bloomed, and the intense pain caused him to cry loudly. Gao Jianli's flesh and blood burned into liquid, gradually forming a water curtain, and a picture appeared in the water curtain. In the picture, Lu Ziqiong and Lu Ziyu were pierced through their bodies by blood-colored chains and bound together. The blood stained the ground beneath their feet. Lu Ziyu's eyes were full of anger, while Lu Ziqiong's eyes were full of loss. The void in the distance distorted, the heaven and the earth roared, and a faint voice could be heard, "God of Brahma, please obey the call of your devout followers and grant me divine power." Hearing the voice, Long Chen and Mo Nian immediately knew that it was when the deputy hall master of the fire temple was brewing a super move, and the 2 were trying their best to stop him. "Ziyu, don't be afraid, with your sister here, I will take care of you on Huangquan Road." Lu Ziqiong looked at her sister tenderly, and Lu Ziyu also looked at Lu Ziqiong and nodded. "Sister, Ziyu is not afraid. Even if I die, I will not betray my friends. I only hope that we can still be sisters in the next life, but don't reincarnate into such a beast-like family." "No, stop them." There was an angry voice on the screen, and that voice was the vice sect master of Zichen sect who had dealt with Long Chen. The deputy sect master was also the head of the Lu family. He took action immediately, but was still a step late. Lu Ziqiong broke through the blockade of the chain and exploded with a bang. The picture was frozen in a blood-colored wave, which was the last trace of Lu Ziqiong and Lu Ziyu in this world. "You bastards!" Mo Nian couldn't bear it any longer. He went mad for a moment. They were too despicable, too shameless. They were even worse than beasts. Suddenly, an iron shovel appeared in Mo Nian's hand, and he rushed directly into the camp of the 4 city guards. Puff puff. Among the 4 major city guards, only Chao Guofeng and others are heavenly saint-level powerhouses, and among the heavenly sacred-level powerhouses, they are still at the bottom. This is why the fire temple is too lazy to let them participate in the war. No one wants to use them. In addition to the 4 city guards, there are a few half-step heavenly saints, and this level is even more watery. Mo Nian's iron shovel slapped wildly, and when he went down, he shot a large area. Mo Nian is different from Long Chen. He rarely kills, but he finds that if he doesn't kill today, he will go crazy, and this group of animals should go to hell. Although Mo Nian's injuries have not recovered, killing these people is still like chopping melons and vegetables. A large number of people are shot to death in an instant, and those who want to escape are all shot and killed by the 4 elders. In a few breaths, the backbone of the 4 city guards were all killed, but Gao Jianli in front of Long Chen was still wailing in pain, and the burning of the fire of purgatory made him want to die. The fire of purgatory is a unique flame in the eyes of purgatory. Even Long Chen himself does not know when it awakened. It seems that it has already existed, but he has not used it yet. As for the reappearance of the memory, how Long Chen did it, he didn't know. He heard Gao Jianli's mourning in his ears. He was filled with the pleasure of revenge. Finally, Gao Jianli turned to ashes in the black flame, and his mourning still echoed between heaven and earth, as if the pain would accompany him forever. All the enemies were killed, but Long Chen and Mo Nian were full of loss. Xing Wujiang died, Lu Ziqiong and Lu Ziyu also died. They were extremely uncomfortable. Patriarch Yulua stepped forward and was about to comfort the two when suddenly Mo Nian's expression changed. No, there is a strong person here. Chapter 49:33 Mo Nian's call surprised Long Chen and Yulua Patriarch and others. They didn't even feel it at all. Mo Nian hurriedly explained, I didn't sense it, it sensed it. As Mo Nian spoke, there was a strange flower in his hand. The flower was like a sunflower, only about a foot high. The trunk was like a chopstick. The sunflower plate was only the size of an egg, and there was no leaf on the body, which looked extremely strange. Mo Nian explained to everyone that this is an ancient divine plant that Mo Nian dug up from the ground. It has the ability to perceive danger, calculate cause and effect, and predict the future. However, it is still in its infancy, and its abilities are limited. Usually, it can only help Mo Nian to perceive strong fluctuations, which is used for treasure detection and detection of traps. It can be said that this is a treasure, especially for Mo Nian, who has been walking underground all the year round. It is a life-saving treasure. However, this treasure, Mo Nian, is usually not used easily, which will seriously affect its growth. As for this divine sunflower with amazing origin, Mo Nian has not yet figured out how many magical powers it has. It is very cherished and it is not easy to use it. But this time he and Long Chen had to come to rescue Xing Wujiang's family because they were seriously injured. For safety, he had to use this little god. Mo Nian moved the sunflower, and saw that its sunflower plate was always facing in one direction, which meant that the danger came from that direction. Do you know what level of existence the visitor is? Asked the Patriarch Yulua. Mo Nian shook his head. The little guy hasn't grown up yet, and the perception he gives is extremely vague. However, it can issue a danger warning, which means that once that guy comes, I won't be able to run away. Can't even run away? Long Chen was startled. Mo Nian said that his greatest ability is to escape, but fighting is his weakness. Suddenly, Long Chen's heart moved, and he remembered that he also had a treasure. He had an amethyst sky pupil in his hand and looked at the direction Shen Kuei pointed. Long Chen kept adjusting the direction, and soon he caught a group of fast-moving figures. There were 9 people in total, and the first one was a white-bearded old man with a cold face. The runes are burning. Long Chen's heart was beating wildly. Although he couldn't feel his breath, the danger that this person gave him was stronger than that of the deputy hall master of the fire temple. Long Chen handed the amethyst Tiantong to Mo Nian and let him see it, but Long Chen's hand could not leave the amethyst Tiantong. It needed to rely on the power of Long Chen's purple blood to run. It's a man from the Temple of Fire, Mo Nian exclaimed. The Patriarch Yulua also looked at it and said, wearing the clothes of the Fire God Temple, but his clothes are completely different from those of the Deputy Hall Master of the Fire God Temple. However, this person's strength will only be stronger than that of the Deputy Hall Master of the Fire God Temple. Let's go quickly. Long Chen and Mo Nian nodded. Such a terrifying powerhouse, not to mention that they are seriously injured now. Even if they are in their prime, they would not dare to fight against them. It is no different from courting death. The reason why they were able to defeat the Deputy Hall Master of the Fire God Temple was mainly through a thrilling calculation, step by step, to push the Deputy Hall Master of the Fire God Temple into a desperate situation. Coupled with the Deputy Hall Master of the Fire God Temple, he has never taken them seriously. He fell into a trap carelessly, and he made a wrong move, and he was never able to regain the upper hand, and finally ended up like this. But luck has taken up a lot of this victory. If it happens again, it will be Long Chen and Emo Nyen who will die. I'm surprised. How did they know we were here? Emo Nyen shook his head and said, their actions are so secretive, it stands to reason that their whereabouts will not be revealed. Besides, the Demon Fufu city today is already a ruined city. Even if the enemy wants to intercept him, they may not think of this place. Besides, those people in the fire temple are all high above, with eyes on their nostrils. Their eyes are full of utilitarianism, and feelings are completely superfluous to them. They would definitely not believe that Long Chen and Emo Nyen would risk their lives to rescue the Xing family members. What's more, the Xing family members have been evacuated long ago, and they should have enough time to investigate. Emo Nyen was puzzled, and Long Chen couldn't understand it. Suddenly Long Chen slapped his thigh. I understand. Understand what? Emo Nyen said hurriedly. Quickly search the mansions guarded by the 4 major cities, you will definitely gain something. Long Chen didn't explain and rushed directly to Zichen's sect. Emo Nyen didn't ask and immediately rushed to the Jagged Gate, while Yulua and the patriarchs of the 4 guardian clans rushed to Tianxin Hall and Huangquan Pavilion respectively. Boom. After Long Chen arrived at the Zichen sect, he was smashed, and at this time, the Lu family disciple also ran over and saw Long Chen smash the Zichen sect into ruins. Instead of being sad, he shouted loudly. Ha, he has already hated this ruthless sect, and he has no intention of staying here. Little brother, what happened to Zichen's sect 3 days ago? Has anyone been here? Long Chen turned Zichen's sect over, but he didn't find anything, so he directly asked the Lu family disciple. The Lu family disciple was stunned and thought for a while. Could it be that I guessed wrong? Long Chen also became unconfident. Long Chen, Emo Nyen, come here. At this moment, the exclamation of the patriarch Yulua came from a distance. Long Chen immediately rushed out like lightning, and that direction was exactly where Huangquan Pavilion was. When Long Chen arrived, he saw an altar glowing from afar, and a figure was sitting on the altar. Emo Nyen looked at the figure in the altar and couldn't help laughing. Ha! Old man, what a sin you have done, and it will eventually fall into the hands of our brothers. Ah, hee hee. Long Chen rushed to the front and couldn't help but look surprised. The figure in the altar was not someone else, but the primordial spirit of the Deputy Hall Master of the Fire Temple. Around the altar, there are densely packed corpses. These corpses are not people from the 4 major city guardian clans, but should be the civilians in the city who have not had time to evacuate. Using innocent dead souls to prolong his life, killing you is really not wrong at all. Emo Nyen looked at the endless corpses around the altar and gritted his teeth. Obviously, this was all done by the 4 city guards, who sacrificed so many civilians in order to keep the primordial spirit of the Deputy Hall Master of the Fire Temple. When Long Chen and Emo Nyen arrived, the Deputy Hall Master of the Fire God Temple in the altar also woke up from a deep sleep. When he saw Long Chen and Emo Nyen, his face changed and his eyes were filled with fear. However, he forced himself to calm down and said coldly, I advise you to rein in the precipice, there is still room for recovery. If you leave now, I can swear with my soul that I can let go of everything that happened before, or I will offend the Fire Temple. Long Chen and Emo Nyen ignored him at all. They looked at each other, and Long Chen asked, You come to me. Chapter 49-34, I'll do it. You've been in the limelight enough, and this time it's my turn. Emo Nyen did his part. The Deputy Hall Master of the Fire God Temple roared, Have you thought about the consequences of what you do? If you kill me, the Fire God Temple will not let you go. The power of the Brahma Pill Valley spreads throughout the entire Emperor Heaven. You will face the pursuit of the whole world. Don't talk. Emon Yen was a little impatient, and while talking he took out a piece of purple jade, which was wrapped in countless runes, and Emon Yen threw him to Long Chen. Long Chen was stunned and didn't understand what Emon Yen meant. When he took the piece of purple jade, he was speechless. It turned out to be a high-level photo jade. Needless to say, he knew what this guy was going to do. Long Chen didn't talk nonsense, and directly opened the photo jade to record this beautiful moment. I saw Emon Yen made a proud and sacred posture, holding a long sword and pointing at the Deputy Hall Master of the Fire Temple. Lao Deng, are you guilty? At this time, Emon Yen was like a judge who was interrogating the prisoner. At this time, the Deputy Hall Master of the Fire Temple was full of fear. Young man, listen to me. The more aloof people are, the more afraid of death. They consider themselves to be heavenly saints and judges. Once judged by others, they will cherish their lives and fear more than anyone else, because they have never thought that one day death will come to them. On them. Laugh. Emon Yen slashed with a sword, and the long sword made a cut on the body of the Deputy Hall Master of the Fire God Temple. What? The Deputy Hall Master of the Fire Temple screamed in pain, and he didn't know from which pit the long sword in Emon Yen's hand was dug. It was burning, causing him great pain. Hold tight. While helping Emon Yen record, Long Chen looked at the direction of the person with his amethyst sky pupil. He found that the person was getting faster and faster. It would not be long before he was going to rush here. He couldn't help reminding Emon Yen, lest this guy played with fire. Okay, time is tight, so I won't embarrass you. Answer my question. How much is 1 + 1? Emon Yen asked. 2. The Deputy Hall Master of the Fire God Temple said almost without hesitation. Puff. Emon Yen slashed the long sword in his hand, splitting the primordial spirit of the Deputy Hall Master of the Fire God Temple in two. Emon Yen calmly blew his sword, shrugged his shoulders, and spread his hands. I'm sorry, you know too much. Emon Yen's expression made Long Chen speechless for a while. This kind of child's routine, you also use it to play, it's too naive. And Patriarch Yulua and others had obviously never seen this kind of routine before, seeing Emon Yen inexplicably hacking to death the Deputy Hall Master of the Fire God Temple, coupled with the unwilling expression of the Deputy Hall Master of the Fire God Temple before he died, he almost didn't laugh. A thing that was originally very serious turned out to be so funny, the Patriarch Yulua and the elders of the 4 patriarchs forcibly laughed. It is estimated that only the 2 of them can do this kind of thing. Call. Long Chen threw the photo jade to Emon Yen. Emon Yen was so excited that he immediately checked the image just now. He wondered if he was so handsome because of his performance just now. There were stars in his eyes. Pimple. Long Chen used the photo jade to help Emon Yen to record, while watching the person with the amethyst Tiantong. He found that when Emon Yen killed the Yuanshan of the Deputy Hall Master of the Fire God Temple, the running person was obviously stiff, and his hands were stiff. He took out something to check, and then his face was twisted and he ran wild. Obviously, they already knew that the Deputy Hall Master of the Fire Temple had been killed, and at this time they were rushing towards the sky with murderous aura. It has to be said that the Deputy Hall Master of the Fire Temple is also damned. In fact, after he was injured that day, he could use a secret technique to send his primordial spirit to the nearest fire temple for self-cultivation. Otherwise, I am not afraid of bad things, but I am afraid that there are no good people. The pavilion master of Huangquan Pavilion advised him to come to Huangquan Pavilion to cultivate, because sending him back would consume more of his primordial spirit power. And here, their 4 major families can protect him and have the power left by Fang Tianin. They even feel that even if Xing Wujiang exists at the level, they are not their opponents, and there is no problem in ensuring his safety. The most exciting thing for the Deputy Hall Master of the Fire God Temple is that the Pavilion Master of Huangquan Pavilion can extract the souls of commoners and nourish his primordial spirit. Because he is currently at the most important stage, if he is nourished by his soul at this time, it will be easier to recover later. So after weighing the pros and cons, he agreed to stay here to cultivate. As a result, his decision sent himself into the gate of hell, and Long Chen felt that something was wrong because of the arrival of the Fire Temple powerhouse. He guessed that he might be recuperating here, and then he was caught. Before he died, he had to be humiliated by Mo Nian, and the deputy hall master of the Fire God Temple deserved it. Let's go. Long Chen watched the group of people getting closer and closer, and even his life instinct had sensed the approaching danger. Long Chen said to Mo Nian, "No hurry, let me arrange it." After Mo Nian finished speaking, he put away the photo jade with some reluctance and read it several times, but he still couldn't see enough. Mo Nian took a breath and took out hundreds of heavenly holy weapons, but these heavenly holy weapons were stained with blood and dirt, and most of them were rusted and difficult to use. However, it is still amazing to be able to take out so many holy soldiers in one breath, and Patriarch Yulua and others were startled. Mo Nian squeezed a seal and buried these holy soldiers in the ground, and then did some tricks on the altar. Although he couldn't understand it, Long Chen knew that this guy was setting up a trap again. This is different from the last time the deputy hall master of the Yinhua Temple. The last trap was set up in a hurry, and it still needed to be concealed. It was very difficult to hide from the opponent. There were too many hidden runes, which led to a sharp decrease in the power of self-destruction. But this time it was different. Mo Nian directly buried these sacred soldiers underground, used the breath of the altar to cover up their breath, and used the formation method to connect the sacred soldiers of the altar. After the arrangement was completed, Mo Nian took out another array plate, and everyone set foot on the array plate together, and then waited quietly. After a few breaths, the violent coercion came like a tsunami, and the city walls of Demon City collapsed, losing the power of Feng Tianyin. They were completely decayed and could not withstand any storms. Boom! Countless buildings in Demon City shattered in front of the terrifying aura, and the wind swept the sky, flying sand and rocks, a look of world destruction. A group of people appeared in the sky above Demon City. At that moment, Long Chen's heart froze, and he finally saw the faces of the people who came. The white-bearded old man headed by them also saw them. Sure enough, he is stronger than that dead ghost, but what can you do to me? Hee, there will be a future. Mo Nian smiled. Buzz, the teleportation array was activated, and the bodies of Long Chen and the others were blurred in an instant. Where to go? The group was furious. A teleportation appeared on the altar, and they grabbed the altar at the same time. At this time, they actually wanted to stay alive. However, Mo Nian's timing was extremely precise, and they did not affect the teleportation at all. Seeing Long Chen and others disappear, they were so angry that they were so angry. "I'm furious," the old man shouted angrily and stomped his feet violently. "You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.